The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now, from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here are your hosts of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard and Taylor Welch.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for May 16th, 2026. This is season 15, episode number 73, and episode number 587 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. Yes, folks, it is a Saturday. And yes, we are recording here for you. We got two great guests for you. And it's been 7 days since the last time we were all at the Visions Veterans Memorial Arena watching the Binghamton Black Bears win Game 4 of the Commissioner's Cup Finals and winning their third straight championship. And yes, some of you are probably having some withdrawals. Some of you will probably listen to the Power Play Post Show, which we really do appreciate. But here we are. I am your host, Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And Taylor, one of the more interesting things is I've been missing it a lot, and I know you've been extremely busy over this past week.
Yeah, it's kind of the fluky thing about how our basically years go is wintertime it's hockey, and then summertime it's racing season, and they pretty much They coexist a little bit there. There's some, crossings that happen when, hockey first starts or when racing starts. But other than that, it's pretty much one solid season and one solid season. So, yeah, constantly busy. Haven't even, I didn't even realize today it was Saturday type of thing. It's just been, running nonstop through the week, trying to get a car put together that was in literal pieces the day before racing. And then, to kind of go through what we went through on Friday. Yeah, definitely nonstop busy. So if you need something to do during the summer, go pick up racing as a hobby.
Now, one of the things that I saw you post was this great picture of Jeremy and Cadence together. He was in his racing suit and he was holding her hand and they were going, is there a part of you that is kind of a little sad? Not that they have that relationship that's great, but she loves racing maybe just a little bit more than hockey.
No, it doesn't make me sad because just knowing that she kind of gets into this element where she can be 100% herself and just run and play and get dirty and, all the things kids love to do is kind of a great thing about, the hockey or the racing world. Hockey, you're in an arena, you're sitting next to somebody, you sit still for several hours. And, from that, for a 5-year-old who has the energy of 50 kids into one, it's insane to try to get her to sit still for anything. So I love watching her kind of grow up into the racing. And we took her to a NASCAR race, and that was she had no interest whatsoever. The cars would come down the front stretch and she'd look at them. She only liked the pink one, and that was it. When it comes to actual racing, she gets very excited when her dad gets in the car. She waves at him on the track. She yells at him when he's on the track. She just gets so involved in it. And it's kind of a running theme with that picture. If you go to his profile and you go back a couple of his profile pictures, there was one 2 years ago, I think it was, it's the same exact picture. It's him and her walking hand in hand. And it's just so funny, how much she's grown in such a short amount of time. But it's probably one of my favorite parts is to kind of watch them together kind of go through this, and him, growing up in that, and then her experiencing it, and him being kind of, the big thing that she's up to. It definitely feels sad about it one bit.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So obviously some people like me who don't, I watch racing on Sundays. It's really my time to watch NASCAR and whatnot. And there are other people who during the summertime kind of can't wait for the hockey season to begin. And you've seen a lot of the posts online of people missing it. I obviously, made a post about it, missing it on Friday night and whatnot, because it was, other than the Friday night during the playoffs that we didn't have it, there hasn't been many Friday nights that we haven't been at the arena or glued to our televisions watching the games on YouTube. And yeah, I've already been thinking about next season, how to improve the Power Play Post Show and to do stuff like that. And I've kind of tried to leave you alone a little bit, maybe had a couple conversations over the past week and whatnot. Have you thought back yet a little bit and kind of soaked in that we just watched a team win 3 championships in a row?
I have been thinking about it more. The days after, a couple days after, I had this feeling. And then at the same time, it's like for whatever reason, I couldn't quite figure out like the feeling that I had, that like it just felt different than the other seasons, and I didn't know like how to put it into words or explain what I was thinking or why I was feeling that way. And being able to kind of listen to Brant's interview, I think I kind of have understood like why I felt the way that I felt, and also understanding like just the importance of the whole thing and like how much it meant, to everybody out there, and like all the things that we've done throughout the season, and kind of how like we gotten like way more involved at least for me, have gotten way more involved and gotten, closer with families and players and just even some of the fans. Jeremy had told his buddy today, because he was like, "Oh, you're not coming to the races with us," and he's like, "No, she's doing a podcast later." And he was like, "Oh, that sounds fun." And he goes, "Yeah, it's actually pretty cool." He's like, "We've gotten to know, a lot of families. We've gotten to know some of the players pretty good." He's like, it's pretty interesting what's, like what goes on when all of this kind of comes together and people, put the face to the name type of thing, as so many people tell me. So yeah, I've definitely kind of been looking at it and reflecting back, and just like this year alone, like the season was great, like everything that they did, and the kind of season that they had was just phenomenal from start to finish, literally. Like I remember you talking at one point about like taking criticism, and Brant, being able to criticize you about stuff that you should have done or shouldn't have said, or that kind of thing. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, it's so hard to criticize a team when they're doing as good as they are.
Yeah.
And at one point you and I kind of joked throughout the season that we're like, they need to lose a game because we need something to talk about, because all we're doing is talking about them winning all the time. So yeah, I've really I think having like that week where you're not for like looking forward to the next game because there isn't one, it kind of really gives you that time to just look back at the season itself and really reflect on everything that's kind of happened. And I think that's what I've been doing, is just kind of looking back at everything, and just I have like a really big appreciation for this season.
Yeah, because it has been different for you, right? Like for me, I've been kind of ingrained into this team for the past 3.5 years. I think Brant and, Brooks Hill and Andreas have really, the three of them have really found a way to include me into the team aspect in some ways, because I get so much access. And, I was talking to my wife about this last night and this morning a little bit. I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if Malik from Strive Motion and I really created a video documentary kind of series a little bit about the Binghamton Black Bears, where we sat down and interviewed 3 or 4 people 3 or 4 times throughout the season, right? So you sit down, you interview 3 or 4 guys, and then you do the same 3 or 4 guys 2 months later, then 2 months later, then 2 months later, and kind of put that together to see the progression of how a season goes. And the access that I've been granted by these guys to come in and to see it, to me, a lot of this has been the same over the past 3 years. I've seen how culture is important. I've seen how the X's and the O's by the coach is important. I've seen about how, the friendship inside the locker room is important, and just the high skill level that they've all come together and just helped each other improve has been important. But I have to imagine for you, this has been completely different this year versus the last 2 years where you didn't have that access. So you were truly a fan the last 2 years, and then this year, your eyes are opened up a little bit differently because of some of the access and because of some of the relationship that you built this year being a part of the show.
Oh yeah, definitely. I that's something that I constantly think about is, I go back to last season when I first started doing just the impact players and just, kind of writing that stuff. And, just, it started off as like, I kind of call it like the snowball effect, where it started off something small and simple and something that I never thought would have amounted to what it became.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it kept growing and kept growing. And then, I became part of the show, and then we started doing stuff. And then you wanted me to start doing interviews. And I remember like just the thought of doing the show terrified me. I was like, I've never been one to talk. I'm not even a huge like talk on the phone person. Like I used to bust on Jeremy all the time because his family, they're very much, we call you. Like if we want to talk to you, we are going to call you and not text you.
Right.
My family is a very much, we're just going to text because it's easier for us. And that's the way that I've pretty much grown up. So for me to just be able to talk, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And then, I was so nervous about it the first couple of times, and then it just became easier. And then, you start meeting some of these guys and like actually getting to know them because, again, for the longest time, I've just known them, like their actions on the ice. It's why I always pick on, like, I always thought Gavin was the most interesting guy. And everyone's like, no, like he's just so relaxed off the ice.
Calm.
Yeah. So to kind of get to know them, in their element and kind of getting to know their families, especially, has been so much fun. I never thought that I'd have the relationships that I do with the families. It's almost like I love going to the arena, but I almost really look forward to going to the arena to see some of the family members, just because like the conversations that I have with them and the hugs and just the happiness that everyone has, it's just so awesome. So yeah, this one has definitely been more like, it's been greater than anything I could have ever imagined. And I'm so happy for like how the season has gone and like everything that's been done, and just everybody knowing my name is still getting me, like from fans to players to even like Brant and
I think
just everybody.
I think when Q called out your name during practice, that took you back a little bit, like, oh wow, wait, hold on. Q knows who I am. And
it definitely did.
And I think you were surprised when you found out that Q and Brant were listening to us during the week when they would have meetings with each other. They would have us on in the background and they'd be listening to some of the things that we were talking about, and which I 100% appreciate and love the fact that the team that we're covering, that there were players throughout these last 3.5 years that were listening to us. The first time I was alerted about it was Liam Anderson. Liam Anderson got to, he and I got to know each other a little bit. And then he said, basically, hey, listen, I listen to your show so I can learn about the other players. And then some of the other players started telling me, yeah, we listen to the show. And then Dylan Konecki told me, hey, I listen to you guys every Thursday morning. I put the show on. Guys are coming through. They're hearing what you're saying, stuff like that. I didn't realize that it was going to turn into that side of it. Like I knew that we were going to be able to have guys on the show and interview them. And because I've been doing that for most of the time that I've been doing podcasting, it's something that I thoroughly enjoy. But then the team that I'm covering is listening that much. I was like, whoa, wait a second here. You got to step back a little bit and realize that, hey, Jacob Shankar is listening to the show, or Dylan or the head coach is listening to the show. And it kind of throws you for a little loop, right? Because you got to like, man, I got to make sure I say the right things here, or not say the right things and hope that they are okay with it. That type of stuff, right?
Or if you talk about family members and they listen to the show and then pick on you about it the next time they see you.
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny. It does change the element a little bit, and I want to say this: we are part of that family a little bit. We're part of that team a little bit, in that sense that we are a mouthpiece for the Binghamton Black Bears, and I totally get that. Listen, the voice of the Binghamton Black Bears is definitely Brooks Hill, and he has been for the last 4 seasons, and before that was Rob Lapolis. And then there's you and I, and we do talk, and I want to pat ourselves on the back a little bit. A lot of people, are really in love with the fact that, oh, Fox 40 did this piece, or Channel 34 did this piece, or Channel 12 did this piece. And they do the best that they can, but man, I don't think anyone provides the coverage of the Binghamton Black Bears, written wise, spoken wise, interview-wise better than what we do. We just do it in a way where we are locked in from the start of the season to the end of the season, and we know exactly what's going on throughout the whole season when it comes to the Black Bears, and we're the media source that you can go to and get all the information. And I love the fact that we are able to do that. They can't do that because they got to cover high school sports and college and the Rumble Ponies in the summertime, stuff like that. And there are only one or two people. We're two people doing it for one team.
Yeah, and I think that kind of shows with, the people that follow us and listen to us and, who come up to us during the games, and even Brant himself and Andreas and, people on the team, they truly kind of appreciate the things that we do and the coverage that we have. And I think even the families really, kind of appreciate what we're doing in the interviews and everything like that. And that became clear to me outside of like fans, messaging me or coming up to me at the arena and just thanking us for what we're doing. To me, it really hit me when Josh Fletcher was the one that was like, I still listen. Like, yeah, I'm still
that's
like,
pretty cool.
And it's kind of like, it kind of jumps back to in the interview that you do with Brant, he kind of talks about stuff like that, about certain players that are still like, they're not necessarily their mindset is still about Binghamton, but they're still like involved and they'll still listen to the show and they still keep tabs and they still like reach out to one another. And it's just, it really kind of shows like just the quality of people that Brant has brought into this organization.
Yeah. Fans, I think fans outside of Binghamton who criticize Binghamton, who say we only won because of the pay that we're paying these guys and all that stuff, they just don't understand the locker room like you and I do. They don't understand that. And what you're referring to in the interview was when I talked about Don Olivieri. And he said that he just loved the fact that when he listened to Don and I talk, that Don was so engaged that he's watching the games and that he has a belief that they were going to win the championship. And he said that right on the air. I think I think if I would have had that conversation with Connor Smith or Andrew Logar, who I know both still listen to the show as well, they would probably say the same exact thing, that they knew that if Brant Sherwood was involved with the team and they were in the finals, they always had a chance to win.
Yeah, I think maybe that's kind of this year wasn't like a surprise factor to me about winning the cup. And I know that sounds really strange. And like, I didn't want it to come I don't want it to come off like a cocky, kind of attitude way.
Right.
Because winning back to back, like that one felt more stressful in a way than getting the third one.
Interesting.
And I guess the reason why is because, when they win the first one and they come back and they're like, we're getting that back to back. Like we're winning a second one. We're going to do it this year. We're getting back to back. We're going to be the only team to do it. And that's, that was the mantra the entire season. We heard that mantra and then they executed it.
Yeah.
So when this season started and even that celebration, they're like, we're going to go for 3.
Yeah.
And then, the mantra started all over again. And you're like, well, if they did it for 2 and that was their mantra and they're already they're firing out of the 8, the start of the season, there was no monkeys on anybody's back. Like they were ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To me, I was just like, they're going to do it like this.
Yeah.
There was no doubt in my mind that they were going to do it again for the third time. And again, I'm not trying to make that, I'm not trying to sound cocky when I say that or say anything that I'm disappointed or anything that obviously I'm not disappointed, but I guess it wasn't a huge, wow, they did it again. I was it's almost I knew they were going to do it.
Yeah.
It was weird.
No, I get what you're saying. Now, here's what's interesting. This leads me into something that I wanted to talk about in another podcast, but let's touch upon it right now. At the celebration, there wasn't talk of, and now the fans tried. The fans tried to get the players and everybody to buy into, let's go for 4, quad Pete or whatever you want to call it and everything. And nobody bought into that on the stage. And I want to get your thoughts on why. And then I'll kind of give you my thoughts. But why do you think the players and basically everybody on stage didn't kind of buy into that and start chanting it? Because last year we heard 3-peat a lot. I think the lure of 3-peat brought Gavin Yates back. When I I was 95% sure Gavin Yates was not coming back this past year. I really was, just from the talk that I'd heard, and the fact that at the celebration, he was not the Gavin Yates to me like he normally is, because I don't think he wanted to talk about it. And he knew I was looking to talk about it. Right. And because I'm a horrible person, I realize that. But no, I'm trying to get the best information, the best feel of the team as I can for you, the fans. And he didn't want to talk. He didn't want to talk to me last year. This year he walked right up to me afterwards, gave me a hug. We talked. We took a couple pictures. It was great. But your thought on why you think that the team didn't really kind of dig into hey, let's go for 4.
Well, I guess probably my logic would be kind of what I just talked about. I mean, after the first season, it was, we're going for 2. And then the third season, they're like, we're going for 3. And I kind of think like they knew in their heads that if they believed in themselves that much that they could do it, that it was going to be possible. Like they could have done it.
Right.
And I think kind of at the end of this one, I mean, you've done it 3 times in a row, which is huge. And I mean, even doing it twice in a row was huge for us last year. And then they go and do it again this year. But I almost feel like, like winning it 3 times in a row is so good for a lot of these guys. And, emotions are always so like intense after the celebration, and, they're carrying around that cup. I feel, and again, I'm not even going to try to guess, because you and I had the same opinion that Gavin wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
Like last year was his last year, and he wasn't going to come back. And, I've made, my own comments about who I thought wasn't going to come back because they either A, were going to get a job, or they were going to retire, or they were going to go on to, greener pasture.
Right.
So I'm never going to guess on who's retiring, not coming back, leaving, whatever the situation might be, on a player ever again, because I'm always extremely wrong about it. But I do feel like, after 3 in a row, I wouldn't be surprised to see, some guys, because again, a lot of these guys this year alone either got married or engaged, or they're going to get married, or, they have jobs that they're trying to get, or just trying to settle down, like actually, build a life. And, I know that's something that Kyle Steffen had talked about in his interview, is if you want to quit hockey, make sure that you have a plan in motion to keep yourself busy.
Yeah.
And so I truly think that for quite a handful of guys, like I think that's possible for them. I mean, quite a few of them were here for all 3 of them. Quite a few of them, were just a part of this year.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if, we see guys not coming back because they decide to settle down, or, they want to go try something else, or they just want to do something else. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. So I think if that was the feeling going into the celebration, not feeding into the fan base about they were going to go for 4, like I feel like they didn't want to oversell something that they couldn't promise. Like I feel like they really, like, they were able to promise the second, because that was, they were going to go do that. And then they were able to promise the third, because again, if they did it for the second time, they could do it for a third time. But my personal opinion, I feel like we could see an entirely different team next year.
I agree.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No.
I feel like there are so many guys on this team. Like Gavin Yates is a perfect example. That kid has done everything you possibly could in this league.
Yeah.
And he's won 4 championships. He's done so much. He's gotten MVP. He's gotten this. He's gotten that. There isn't any much more that he could do except, I just want to play hockey, so I'm going to play hockey.
Yeah.
Of course he would be able to play hockey. He's still good at it. Like, it's not, but there are certain players where I feel like they either just want to like go build their life, or they want to just, do something else. It's totally understandable. So I feel like they just didn't want to sell something that they couldn't, provide. Yeah.
I agree with you, because when I look at this, I don't see everybody coming back with what we saw before. And I know it's only a week later and we're already talking about this, but I truly believe that of the 8 guys that won the 3 championships, right? And then of course you have Brant Sherwood, and then you have the EQ staff, John Brown, Chris, and Aiden were all part of that as well, right? So you take a look at all those guys. There's a good portion of those guys, from Kyle to Gavin, that could truly just move on from hockey, which is completely fine and understandable. And there are a couple guys that could move on. Now, one of the things that gets in the way of the Black Bears continuing to keep a lot of the same players is the veteran rule, right? And the veteran rule is something we'll get into in future episodes here in the summertime, but you can only have a certain amount of veterans dressed for a game. You can sign as many as you want to the team, but you better have like 6 or 7 rookies in there, because if not, there's going to be a problem with the league. So there is that aspect of it as well. There might be a couple guys that want to just play somewhere else and do something else, whether it be in the SP, another Fed team, maybe even still try to make that ECHL team. You know, Connor McAnanima is one of the perfect examples of that. Connor McAnanima can and should be playing at a higher level, right? So there are guys that could potentially move on and play somewhere else or just retire entirely. And we're not talking about a group of guys that have only been here for a year or two. We're talking about a group of guys that have been here for 3, 4, 5 years, right? I think it's what Tyson and Gavin have been here for all 5 seasons of the Binghamton Black Bears. And I just have a feeling, like you, they didn't want to make a promise that the team couldn't necessarily back up, because even the Florida Everblades, who just won 3 in a row as well, they didn't win their 4th season because they had enough turnover that they had to rebuild a little bit. I'm not saying it's a rebuilding season next year, but it could be a rebuilding season next year. And that's the part of this that makes it, difficult. Look at Scott Ramakers. He had to be convinced to come back this year. Brant Sherwood poured it on pretty good, and then there was a fan in the stands who owns a business that said, Scotty, hey, if you do return, listen, I got a job for you. I can help you get into the business field that you want to get into. And so he did that. So you just don't know. And then, of course, the other element is Brant Sherwood's now won 3 championships. Does he go to a different league and move up in his career? And if that does happen, then what? Who becomes the coach? Is it Q? Does he have the same relationship with being able to bring in players? Does he have the same recruiting and scouting abilities? There's so much questions. I can understand why they did not buy into what the fans were chanting at the celebration.
Yeah, that's kind of the same, obviously, conclusion that I came into. And, for a lot of these guys, if you won 1 championship, if you won 3 in a row, I mean, we had, how many of them were there that had won 3 in a row? Like 8, I think, or somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So, they could, obviously any single one of them could probably look at another team and be like, hey, like, this is what we did up here. I want to come play here for whatever reason, which, and again, we've kind of talked about it before, where a lot of players want to play in Binghamton because it's Binghamton. Like the atmosphere that's been created here, like a lot of players just want to be here because of that.
Yeah.
And so, like, I get, like, both sides of that coin. It's definitely hard, but at the same time, like, for, Tyson, who's been here for a long time, and he's done 5 seasons, and he's been the captain, and he's won 3 cups. I wouldn't blame him if he wanted to go try something else, if he wanted to go to a different league, if he wanted to go and if he wanted to give up hockey and go do something else. Like, I wouldn't be surprised on whatever path he decided to take, because he's already done a lot.
Yeah.
And he did a lot this season alone. I mean, he played 2 games, and then he was out for an extended period of time because of injury, and he was still on the bench. He was still doing what he needed to do. So I wouldn't blame any of these guys for taking any kind of route or path that they wanted in life, whether it was to continue playing hockey or, do something completely different. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think they all deserve to do, whatever is going to make them happy. Yeah. And I think also on that point, I wouldn't be surprised if we somehow started the season without a bunch of the guys that we remember, and it turned into a Kyle Steffen situation where he showed up to get his ring and he has a conversation with Andreas, and then, 2 weeks later he's signed to a player contract and he's back in the lineup and he's back to doing, hockey things. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that either, because it's definitely, it sounds like it's such a hard thing to just give up and quit. And, Stefan was one of those players that was like, it's so hard to do if you don't have a plan afterwards. And you followed him and you were like, he's posting pictures, he's riding bikes everywhere. Like he's doing all of this stuff. And he still was convinced to come back and play hockey. So at this point, literally anything is possible. But I truly believe that they did not want to sell something that they couldn't, keep their promise on. Like I truly do believe that. And that's not saying that they're going to go into the season and there's absolutely no chance that they could do it again. I would believe anything that they could do. What's been created in that locker room, and it's something that you guys kind of talked about with the whole Don thing there, with your interview with Brant, is like, just the whole good guy thing has obviously worked out so well. Good guys over talent, which is, it's kind of like almost shocking to think about, because the other thing that you guys talk about is like how good the league has gotten in the past couple seasons, and even this season alone. There's just so much talent throughout this league, and it's developed, it's getting better and better. And, we're not kind of into the situation like the Dashers, who didn't win any games and they were struggling the entire season, or the Venom, who had to, constantly were looking for a home to play in type of thing. So I do think it's getting better, and I think the competition is getting better, and I think it's definitely, it's wanted. Even Brant was like, I would love more competition. Like I would definitely like to see, like, Watertown, it's looking like Watertown's going to shape up pretty good. Everyone's pretty excited about it. Danbury, that would be awesome to see more competition between the teams that we face, just because it's better hockey that way, in my opinion. So yeah, I definitely think they didn't want to oversell something, and I don't think they wanted to disappoint the fans. But at the same time, at some point, a streak is going to end, and I don't think they wanted to be like, well, we're going for 4, and then it not happen.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, we found out today that Cam Yarwood is joining Brent Clark up in Watertown, part of the coaching staff up there, which I think is only going to benefit the Watertown Wolves, so that should help. I listened to AJ Galante from the Danbury Hat Tricks on the FPHL's official podcast, Beyond the FPHL, and he had a wake-up call this season. He didn't realize how this league worked. He didn't realize some of the things that he needed to learn about when it came, because he ran a team back in the old UHL days, the Danbury Trashers. And I think he realized, oh, crap, we are really behind. I'm going to say this respectfully to him, because he didn't say this specifically, but I'm pretty sure that he realizes this. In the back of his mind, if he hears me say this, he's going to understand what I'm talking about. They were nowhere near where the Black Bears are today. They're behind. They're behind on the times on what they need to do, how they need to bring in players, how they need to interact with the players. They are behind on that. But then so is almost every other team in this league. And that's the reason why the Black Bears are on top. The way they conduct their business on the ice and off the ice with their team, with their players, the Black Bears are above and way past everybody else. And that's the reason why they've won 3 championships. Because at the end of the day, when Brant said to me, good guys over talent, Brant was half wrong there. It's good guys first, yes, but also good talent as well. These are the best players in the league, hands down. He talked about Alexander Legoff and how good of a puck transporter he is. Well, he also said that, about Durazo, and he said that about Gavin Yates and so on and so forth. The Black Bears still have the best talent on the ice. They also just have some of the best good guys also in the league as well. And the culture in the locker room is like each other. And if not, you're probably going to go.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've really appreciated. I mean, with the Danbury situation, that was clear to me from the beginning, when they basically signed a bunch of, I guess you could call them the goon squad at the beginning of the season to face Port Huron. That was the first sign to me that I was like, well, Danbury's not going to be an issue this year because they're not worried about winning.
They're not trying to.
His statement was, well, fights sell tickets and gets, butts and seats, but that's not going to work in the long run. Like, yeah, fighting in hockey does get people to come and sit in the seats, and it does get the fans involved sometimes. But we had very few fights this season, and we had a lot of sellouts.
Yeah, 13.
And I mean a lot of sellouts.
Yeah, 13.
And so I think I'm glad that he had a wake-up call, and I really hope that he kind of watched Binghamton and, watched what they were doing and realized, like, okay, look, this isn't, the then time where we can't just go out there and start a line brawl and expect everything to be good. So you have to win games as well.
Yeah.
And because I remember, like, I talked to quite a few of the Danbury fans about it, and he was like, he has no idea what he's doing. And the amount of times where they've had conversations with me where they're like, where does Brant find these guys? Like, honestly, he's like, you guys get the kids and they come in here and they look like they've been playing, like professional for years. And he's like, they're college. Like, why can't our coach go and do that? And it's so funny to kind of hear other teams, like they hype Brant up in a way. And then at the same time, they also hate Brant. So it's hysterical.
It is.
But yeah, so many conversations I've had with guys that are like, with like somebody like Brant on our team, or like a certain player. I think it was Clark, or like, man, like we really wish we had a guy like that on our team. And he's like, I wish we had somebody that could recruit like Brant does, and that kind of thing. And it's so many. So I'm glad that he kind of had the wake up call, and I truly hope like he can kind of figure it out and kind of
make it better,
work to making it better.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. Let's get into this. The Power Play Post is available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show in your favorite app, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed all over all the platforms. Really appreciate it. Join the conversation on Facebook, search Power Play Post Show, and become part of our community. Looking for everything Binghamton Hockey? Visit binghamtonhockey.net, your go-to source for stats, history, and all things Binghamton Hockey. And no other team in the FPHL has a binghamtonhockey.net. No other team in the American Hockey League has a binghamtonhockey.net. No other team in the ECHL has a site like this. We are the only city in North America that has a site like this in minor league sports. And coming up next on the Power Play Post Show, or coming up on this episode of the Power Play Post Show, you get to hear from CJ Stubbs as he was driving out to Utah. We talked while he was on the road. He was in Pennsylvania still, hitting close to Erie, Pennsylvania. I did check in with him also yesterday as he was finishing up the trip. And when I talked to him yesterday, he had about an hour and a half back. And of course, you've already seen some of the previews of my interview with Brant Sherwood, as I did a video version of that. And I also did a audio version of that. And you'll hear the audio version here on the Power Play Post Show. And maybe within a day or two, we'll put up the full video version of that interview with Brant Sherwood on our YouTube channel.
I got to, get a sneak peek and listen to the Brant Sherwood. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the weird things, listening to the interview with Coach Q. Well, it's most of that interview. And then I get to hear this with Brant, and it's just so interesting to like hear the way that they think and the way that they talk about things. It just kind of like, it really helps me like understand things to a deep level when it comes to like the players or how things work or that nature, which is awesome because again, I still don't know that much about hockey and I'm still learning a lot. So yeah, the interview was great and I really enjoyed it, especially when he, gets all kind of in there. And I say sappy, but it really wasn't that sappy. It's just, he talks about his lovely life. So,
yeah.
Sappy moment.
100%.
Post Show fans, do us a quick favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of the show. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you're following the podcast and leave us a rating. It's completely free to do. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells YouTube and Spotify to push the show out to more Binghamton Black Bear fans and more hockey fans just like you. Drop a comment too. We read them and we love hearing from you.
Okay, thoughts on the month-by-month results for the Black Bears this season. Now, in October, we went undefeated, 7-0. We scored 36 goals and we gave up 19 goals. That resulted in a goals for average 5.14 and 2.71, which was second to the highest, the amount of goals that we gave up. But that was at the beginning of the season, but we still won 7 in a row. Not a big deal. In November, we played 10 games when we were 8-2. We scored 47 goals and gave up 24 goals. We had a goals for average of 4.70, so a little bit of a dip from October. And then a goals against was 2.40. The defense slowly but surely got better throughout the regular season. And then in December, we were 9-0. So we had 2 months out of the first 3 months where the team was undefeated, was scoring 57 goals and then only giving up 17 goals, which was pretty impressive out of 10 games, or 9 games, I apologize. Our goals for average went up to 6.33, which was the highest in the regular season in a month, okay? And then the goals against average went down to 1.90, which still was not the best this year. Now, as we head into 2026, in January, the team went 6-3-1. This was the month that they struggled the most. If Taylor, if you agree with me on this one, 43 goals for, 29 goals against. Our goals scored average was 4.3 and our goals against was 2.90. So we gave up one more goal per game than we did in December. But Taylor, the first 4 months, you could see, October and December were very good. And then January was definitely the worst part of the season.
I know, and kind of just looking at the numbers, I remember everybody wishing that we had done the same thing in February that we did in October and December, where it would have been every other month we kind of had just a raw. But unfortunately, in February, we were 7-0-1. We had 4-4, 22 allowed for a goals for average of 6.13 and a goals against 2.75. And then for March, we were 7-1-0, 37 goals for, 11 goals against for a goal for average of 4.63, goals against average. And then April, we were 4-0-0, 21 goals for, 6 goals against. The goals for average was 5.25, and the goals against average was a 1.50.
Yeah, that March goals against average of 1.38, Taylor, was probably the most impressive. They only gave up 11 goals in 8 games. That's unheard of. I mean, that's a team that was clicking defensively pretty damn good. And we even saw that a little bit in the Port Huron series where they could just shut people down completely. And I think we saw that in March, and then we saw that in round 2 against Port Huron.
Yeah, I think kind of watching the defense come together, and, they've had little dips here and there where, there were times where we were talking about the breakaways or the giveaways. And then, there are certain games where you just watch them completely shut everything down. The defense was really coming together as the season went on. And it was just, they worked so well with one another, and which is crazy because the amount of times that the pairings were kind of switched up or you were playing with somebody else. I mean, I think Dan Stone and Austin DeRosio were the only 2 most solid pairings throughout the entire season.
Yeah, I think you saw Dan Weber on the third line de-pairing very consistently, and Jesse Anderson on the second line de-pairing on the left-hand side, but they had different partners, throughout the season. It kind of solidified as Jesse and Scotty, and then Dan with Cam Cervone. Realistically, that's probably was the most consistent 3D pairs that we had all season long. But I don't think that mattered too much because not only were all of those guys, including Chicho Laughlin, because you could mix him in there because he did get a fair share of games. I think 33 games is what he played in the regular season. So he was in there enough times, but also that just the whole team offensively, the offensive players came back and helped out the D pairs a lot on the ice. And you can really see that difference because later on we have a number, and I just want to bring it up real quick, right? When you look at the goals for, did I not put it in there? I did not put it in there. Somehow I did not put it in there. But the goals for this year, I think was 5.2. Oh, yeah. Okay. And the goals against,
it's at the,
it's right above it, right? It's 2.5, 2.25. When the year before that, it was 2.52. Again, it's so interesting that this was the best season defensively of any Binghamton Black Bears team in 5 years. We'll get to that. We'll get to those again in just a minute, but let's go through. These are the end of the year numbers that we went through once before. The team record was 48-6-2 with 143 points and an 851 points win percentage. The season before that was so similar. This is the crazy thing about this team and what they've done in the last 2 years. 49-6-1 with a 143 points and an 851 points win percentage. Taylor, that just doesn't happen where you have almost exact numbers like that.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. And I know we've talked about it before, but it still blows my mind when you see it literally written in front of you.
Yep.
And it's so crazy to look at. And I still can't believe it. And it's literally like I'm reading it as you're saying it. And I still can't believe it. It's one of those things where
2 seasons like that.
Again, this is why, it's like why I still like, I'm not that surprised that they got a third one because
That's fair.
Everything that's like, I want to say fallen into place because they obviously they worked so hard for this.
Right.
But it was insane to kind of watch it come together.
All right. Goals for was a league high of 292 and allowed 120 goals against. Both were league best. That equated to 5.2 per game and only 2.1 goals per game. Both were league best as well. Second in the league in the least amount of penalty minutes with 973. Those darn Thunderbirds beat us on that, but they're a very disciplined team down there. But a decrease from last season of 428 minutes. That is something that Taylor really highlighted a lot at the end of the season as well. Finished third on the power play, converting 25% of the time and scored the most power play goals with 79, 13 more than second place, which was 66 for the Columbus River Dragons. Austin DeRazio, who what a great story this season, scored 13 man-up goals, most on the team. CJ Stubbs with 12. Mac Jansen scored 10, with honorable mentions going to Gavin Yates and Tyson Kirkby, who both scored 8 power play goals each in the regular season. D-Raz's 13 power play goals was tied for second place in the FPHL. Finished first on the penalty kill, only allowing 31 power play goals and killing 88% of the time, allowing the least amount of goals on the kill than anyone else this season. 11 shorthanded goals this season. One was a phantom one that CJ Stubbs got, but we won't talk about that. He scored 5 shorthanded goals, with Mac Jansen scoring 2 shorthanded tallies. Tyson Kirkby, Kyle Steffen, Yvonne Bondarenko, and Austin Thompson scored shorties as well.
Austin DeRazio led the league this season with a plus-minus of plus 48. Yvonne Bondarenko was a close second with a plus-minus of plus 46. And I think this kind of just also highlights a little bit that the league has gotten better, because I believe season Dakota Bond and Dan Stone led with like plus 56 and plus 54, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
CJ Stubbs led the league in game-winning goals with 9 and shorthanded goals with 5. Dominic Tomei led the league in all major netminder categories with 28 wins, a 1.83 goals against average, a 932 save percentage, and 7 shutouts, which tied the league record with Brendan Colgan. Yvonne Bondarenko led the league with 77 assists, which is now the single-season franchise record for the Black Bears. Both Yvonne Bondarenko with 98 points and CJ Stubbs with 97 finished second and third in points in the league. The team went undefeated from 11-15-2025 to 12-31-2025, which was a 15-game winning streak.
Isn't that nuts, though? That is just, to me, that's nuts. That winning streak, and then the year before that, it was an 18-game winning streak. This team, to be able to rattle off those wins like that, was just really kind of special to watch.
Yeah, I think everybody wanted them to be 18, but to go 15 in a row is, especially like kind of early into the season, is definitely insane. Like I would expect it like further into the season when, your team's more settled and everything, like everything's kind of ironed out, not right off the bat almost.
Yeah.
There was only a mini 3-game losing streak this season, 124-26 versus PD, then the 30th and 31st versus the Twin City Thunderbirds.
I think that was a good thing. I just think it allowed the team to go, okay, we have to check ourselves a little bit. We have to see that these two teams played us a little bit differently than maybe the Wolves were, than maybe the Hat-Tricks were, or even maybe the Port Huron Prowlers were a little bit, right? And they had to go back to the video board a little bit and say, what did they do well? Because we might see that later on in the playoffs, right? So I think it was a good thing that they lost those 3 games in a row.
I think so too. I think PD had a really strong run. I mean, obviously they made it to the finals with us, but I think to lose every once in a while kind of lets you look, and it helps you see if you have any flaws or if you have things you need to work on. It's kind of hard to do that when you're constantly winning, which I think is kind of something was we didn't have a lot to talk about because they kept winning.
Yeah.
2 players not tricks but scored 4 goals in a game. Gavin Yates scored 4 goals on 12/5/2025 versus the Port Huron Prowlers.
Amazing.
Nick Swain 1 week and 1 day later on Teddy Bear Toss Night 12/13/2025 also scored 4, with his first being the first goal of the game, seeing Teddy Bears rain down on the ice, and then his third saw hats rain down as well. Nick Swain and CJ Stubbs both scored 2 separate hat tricks this season. Kirkby, Thompson, Jansen, Diraz, Yates, and Sargis all scored hat tricks this season.
Nice.
2 players scored 30 or more goals. CJ Stubbs had 39. Mac Jansen had 32. Another 5 players scored 20 or more. Yates and Diraz had 24. Bondarenko and Kirkby each had 21, and Nick Swain with 20. Another 6 players scored about 10 goals. Sorota, 19. Sargis, 16. Ramakers, 16. Thompson 14, Stefan 10, and Shankar 10. Overall, 13 players scored double digits in goals.
Insane.
Every player who played in 33 games or more this season scored at least 1 goal. No more anticipated goal was from Chicho Laughlin, who scored his on March 7th of this year, which I think was probably the highlight for everybody except maybe Laughlin. I was expecting like a huge celebration out of him. I think he was a little bit embarrassed that everybody was celebrating so hard for him.
And who was freaking out on the ice? Was it Diraz or someone? I think it was Diraz that was going nuts when he scored, right?
I don't remember. It could have been Bondo. It could have been Weber. I don't know. Weber's a huge hype man, but he's usually pretty hype when he's sitting on, like if he's standing on the bench and something happens on the ice, he's usually the one slapping his stick against the boards, making as much noise as possible. So it really could have been anybody. I think everybody was so excited about that. And he just seemed kind of like nonchalant about it. It was hysterical. The Black Bears only lost 2 games to any one team, just twice, to the Twin City Thunderbirds and to the Danbury Hat Tricks. Yep. And the most important stat line from the season, the Black Bears won on 10/10/25, a.k.a. opening night, banner-raising night, a 5-4 win over the Watertown Wolves, which meant that I and you did not have to hear Bobby talk about it all season long.
Now, that honestly, now they have to do it again. That's the sad part. They have to go and do that again, right? Because,
Listen, if they just win that game and then lose the rest, I'll be okay.
It's a win, right? For everybody else. Right. Fair enough.
We had 9 total shutouts. Tomei had 7, Macananima 1, and Chance 1. Only 1 game where the Black Bears were shut out, which was a 4-0 by the PD Ice Cats on January 24th. Wow. I think it's the only time that we were shut out in our own arena, I think.
Yeah, in the franchises. Yes, it was.
Which is crazy, but I mean, it was bound to happen at some point.
Yeah.
16 of 56 games where the Black Bear opponents only scored 1 goal in the game, which to me is the craziest stat. I think out of all of them, that's probably like the craziest. 56 games, goals for was 292, goals against was 126, both best in franchise history, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
In 56 games, goals for average was 5.2, goals against average was a 2.25, both best in franchise history.
Now, and that's where that leads us to the franchise goals for and against over the last 5 seasons. And I really want to concentrate on the first season and the last season, Taylor, right? Because the goals for really hasn't changed that much, right? Goals for this year was 5.2, as you just mentioned and you just said. In the first season, it was 4.88. Scoring has always been there, but the goals against average was 4.8 in that first season. And I remember watching those first games for the Black Bears, and I was just watching them on YouTube. I wasn't going to the games yet. And I just remember saying, there's no freaking defense. Like, all they do is go up and down the ice, and they just score goals, and nobody is playing defense. And I just don't think the defense was all that good. Now, there were good players playing defense, like Kyle Powell and Cam Yarwood. But they did play defense. They didn't go and play defense. And if you look at those numbers, Taylor, over the last 5 years, the defense continues to get better and better every season, from 4.80 in the first season to an average of only 2.25 in the last season. That says a lot about the growth of the Fed in the last 5 years. Because I'm sure that happens not just here in Binghamton, but in a lot of the other teams that have been around for those 5 years. And maybe there's not that many that have been around for that 5 years. But in the, take Twin City, probably Columbus, that average, I'm sure, has gone down almost every single year.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. And again, just like you said, it just kind of goes to show that the league's getting better in itself. And, looking at the goals for average, and it's pretty solid all across the board. And
yeah.
You look at those numbers, and they're not too far from each other. And then you look at the goals against average, and it's just dropping. Boom. And it drops pretty drastically. Like, that's insane to kind of watch it happening literally in front of us, right before our eyes. We're kind of watching this unfold. So it's kind of interesting to be able to put it into numbers and see what the difference is, and to see that, what they're doing to better themselves each year is actually paying off.
Yeah, 100%. And I've always said, because people have said this all throughout sports talk time, defense wins championships. And I know it's like, it almost sounds like an oxymoron, right? Because unless your defensive players are all scoring the goals and getting you the most goals, it's a strange thing. But in my eyes, when you look at the last 3 seasons, the goals against average in the regular season, the first championship run was 3.04. Respectable, nice. Then you go to 24-25, and it's almost a half a goal difference per game down to 2.52. And then you take off another 0.25, another quarter goal per game to get it down to where it is, which was 2.25 this year. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know if it can get better than that. I think that is probably one of the most impressive numbers throughout this whole season, is that they got that number down to 2.25. And maybe it's something that I've been harping on for the past 3 years of doing this show, which is the defense has got to get better, and it continues to get better. Well, the defense has gotten better, and it's been really good and very, very impressive. And I think a big part of that is structure, right? Brant Sherwood brought in structure into this team, and you could see the immediate effects of that, right? In 22-23, when he joined halfway through the year, that number then starts to decrease, and it's decreased all 4 years that he's been a part of this organization. And I think there's just nothing there more to say, but he brought in structure, brought in good players, and that's really helped that number.
Yeah, and I mean, the proof is literally in front of us. Like,
yes.
The numbers literally show it for themselves, just how much better it's gotten as the season's gone on, and as Brant has kind of instilled all the knowledge that he has, and bringing in the people that he has, and, even bringing Q in this year.
Yeah.
And just kind of what he has built, it literally shows it in the numbers, what's going on in this locker room.
Well, this is a great way to take us to our first interview, which is with Brant Sherwood. And when we come back after the interview with Brant Sherwood, we'll talk a little bit more about Brant Sherwood and his record over the past 3.5 years, what he's done, and we'll get Taylor's thoughts on the interview as well. So we'll be right back right after this with Brant Sherwood right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Hi, this is Don Biggs from the 92-93 Binghamton Rangers. Hi, this is Brandon Buczynski.
This is Grady Wittenberg, the voice of the Binghamton Senators, and you're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. I'm sitting here in the office. I think this might be the second year in a row because we've done many of these exit interviews with head coach Brant Sherwood from the Binghamton Black Bears. Coach, congratulations. 3 in a row. Very rarely happens in pro hockey, and definitely only 3 times before you guys in minor pro. Talk a little bit about this feeling that you're having about this accomplishment, because it's a huge one.
It's been an amazing run. It kind of takes you back knowing that, only a few teams have done this in like a century of hockey. So,
right.
No, it's really something special what we built here, and it all goes to the guys that, go out there and perform and kind of listen to what Q and I have been saying all year, and for the guys that have come before us too, like the guys that just won 1 year and left, or won 2 years in a row and then left. It's really a culture that's been built and sustained for 3 years, ever since I came in the league and got that fresh start my first season.
This was a tougher run, though. Let's be perfectly honest. Yeah. In the first season, you guys lost no games in the playoffs. Then last year, you guys lost 1 game in the playoffs. This year, you lost 2 games in the playoffs, and including 1 game in the finals. This league is only getting better, Brant. And a big part of that is because of what you guys have built here in Binghamton. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just think, other organizations are trying to elevate their game and match us, and it's been quite the journey as far as, being able to stay on top with a target on your back, but it was definitely harder. These teams are getting better, the recruiting's getting better, the coaching's getting better, and there's a lot more parity in the league that is undeniable. You can see it just even looking at teams' rosters, or with the classic eye test when we're playing other teams. It's just somehow the Black Bears that we find the edge, and whether we're locking it down or pumping in a bunch of goals, or making the necessary adjustments from game to game or period to period, like we find a way to get it done. And it's the belief in that room to, go out there and execute it and know that, one guy's going to step up, someone's going to be the hero tonight, and you just never know who that's going to be.
Talk about Kyle Steffen, because his season was an interesting one. He came on the Power Play Post Show, basically claimed that he was retiring, and then I think it was beginning of November, he comes back to the team. And his role changed a little bit. I think he got a little bit nastier on the ice, which was great, especially in the playoffs. I literally said, you were an a-hole in the playoffs, and it was beautiful. It was great the way he played.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how important Kyle has been? Because he has been he's one of the three-peaters, as I like to call you guys. And can you talk a little bit about his progression from the first day you met him to this point?
Well, the first thing with Kyle is his appreciation for the game. So first thing he said in our exit meeting yesterday was like, thanks for taking a chance on me. And it's like, dude, it was a no-brainer taking a chance on you. You had a pretty good hockey resume, and we were willing to work with you. And we kind of saw the potential off the bat of what it could become. And then it did become that. And he became, a staple in our lineup, especially down the middle. But his progression, I think he just became a better leader and an understanding teammate that, in previous years he was a second line center, and this year he kind of became, third line center, right wing, stuff like that. Became a lot more adaptable and kind of just another soldier for us that like, hey, coach, whatever it takes, I'm here to win a championship. So his character is top notch, and I really think after he had a tough Topeka series, and he was really beating himself out about that series. There's just one game, a turnover, but like whatever, it doesn't defy your whole game and stuff like that. But it really ate him up, and the way he bounced back in this PD series, he was one of our hungriest forwards. He was leading the charge, and 2 big goals in the finals. Like, unbelievable job by Kyle. And I was happy to see him get his shot back, but his pace of play, his hunt, his forechecking, the way he was finishing his hits, like, I wouldn't want to play against that guy. Are you kidding me? And the entire third line and plus Shanks, like, those are some big boys, and when they're coming at you and chipping pucks behind you and putting you into the end wall, that's it's not too much fun. And I think it opened up a lot for other lines, but opened up some offense for their line as well.
Another kind of good story, or hopefully a very good story, is Gavin Yates, right? Been with this team since the beginning, essentially, along with Tyson Kirkby, but he suffered an injury in a game, and any fan could go back and see that injury and see that incident and realize it was not just, I got a bruised muscle or something like that. This was an injury that people thought about, like, this could be the end for Gavin. And yet he comes back and he plays in some games and he chips in some goals and he helps you guys win that third championship. Talk a little bit about him, because like Kyle, this is a story that there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things to it.
Well, with Yates, with his injury, he's had a history of concussions. So, on the coaching and medical side, we had to be super mindful of that and make sure he was absolutely ready to go. And, when we got him in, he just added more depth. The kid's the best. Him, Bondo, maybe the Lekhoff kid too as well. They're the best puck transporters in the league. They can gain zones like no other. They can carry the puck from the top of the circles to the other top of the circles, and
they don't
almost
think when they move. It seems like their body knows where to go. They know where to find that open lane, how to skate smoothly.
Exactly. They have good, north and south speed, but good lateral movement as well, and know how to find that empty space to create some room or buy some time to wait for, their puck support from their F2, F3 and stuff like that. So having Gavin back, that, who knows if we would have won without him. So, you absolutely need a guy like that. But the best part about Gavin this year is, we were talking about it, it's like he was on the third line at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Did not care.
No.
He checked his ego right at the door. We didn't even have to have a conversation. I think I went up to him and was like, hey, you good with everything? You're on the power play still? I'm trying to butter him up and stuff. And he goes, Coach, I'm fine. I love playing with Stefan. I love playing with Swain.
Yeah. And
I think him coming back, he was a little timid to start. Rightfully so. Yeah. A little worried about, getting hit or getting blindsided.
Well, because you wanted to put him on the 10-4 the day he was going to come back, and had to change that. That's the crazy part about it.
I did. And it was a conversation after each shift, hey, you good? You feeling good? And then once he was like, yeah, I'm going, I was like, all right, I'm not going to hold this guy back. He's here to play. He's not here to, be a cheerleader on the bench. So he's a guy that, is one of the three-peaters, and his voice goes a long way in our locker room. I think he's the funniest guy in the team. Other guys, they find their comedic relief elsewhere. But before Q got here, I'd always wait in the hallway to see what he said after my pregame speech, because he always chirps the other team, chirps me for what I said or whatever. He's always got something stupid to say, and it keeps the room light. It keeps everyone engaged, and he's a reminder that this game is supposed to be fun, and he has a ton of fun on the ice.
Is that one of the reasons why he and Tyson, Austin Thompson, a couple other guys were the guys that you kept? When there was the whole fire Sherwood and the clearance sale that you were getting rid of all these players, he was one of those guys, along with Tyson and Austin Thompson. I'm trying to think of a couple others that stayed. What was it about those guys, the character of those men at that time, that had you say, I need these guys, and they were going to be a part of something special later on?
Plain and simple, they're good people and easy to work with. Whether it's you're working in hockey or working in an office, I would work with those guys any day of the week, because they show up ready to work. They want to have fun, and they're engaged. They care about what they're doing, and want to progress the program that they're in and leave a legacy behind. And that's exactly what a lot of those guys did, and even Austin Thompson as well. 2 championships, and like I know him leaving.
It was a hard thing.
It was a hard thing, but at the same time, it opened the door for guys like Shanks. It opened the door for guys like Swain that maybe wouldn't have played, or maybe
had to be moved.
Maybe Emerson Emery doesn't get in a playoff game because of that, and maybe it's too many big dogs in the locker room as well. So everything happens for a reason. I wish them nothing but the best. But yeah, it's good people. It's good guys only, and that's what we weigh over talent every single time with the Black Bears.
Talking in reference, I spoke to Chris Mott after you guys won the championship, and he said he wasn't surprised, but he was glad that he was a part of 3 of your guys' losses, because he was
he was bragging about it.
He was bragging about it, right?
3-1 against us.
But Brant, you've been here for 3.5 years, and you've populated a little bit of this league with some really great players who have moved on from Binghamton. Chris Mott is one of them. Cam Clark is another. We've talked extensively about Cam Clark. Does that feel good to you that you have a little bit of legacy in this league of some players that you've brought in? I know Gary Graham has done a good job. Even Matt Graham up in Port Huron is bringing in good players, or Chris Pollan. Depends on who you talk to, which day, which guy is bringing it in up there. But does that feel good to you to know that some of the guys you brought in who have maybe left this team for whatever reason it might be are having success, and even kind of like enjoying the fact that they can say, well, I got a few wins over the Black Bears?
I love it. And when I see those guys across the way, they know I care about them. But, when the puck drops, I totally want to win. I'm a competitive guy. But even after the game, I'll make time to talk to them. And Mater, we talked throughout the year.
Yeah.
You told me. I'm still friends with these guys, and I'll always be, open ears and open arms. If they ever want to talk about something, I'll try to give them the best advice and steer them in the right direction, or, hey, shut up, you got to stick it out. You're with a good program, just bear down and everything will work out. Just believe in yourself type of deal. But, the progression in this league, I think it does start with the Black Bears, but there was also a point in time that I think really kind of turned this league around, and it was the COVID season. Mm-hmm. When I was assistant coaching in Columbus with Jerome and Jeff Krupp and Jay Krupp, I think that was a big turning point in our league, because each team in that time, they were loaded with SP players. Every team bumped down, or every league bumped down players a little bit. You had AHL guys playing in the East Coast. You had East Coast guys playing in the SP.
There wasn't enough teams.
There wasn't enough teams, for guys to play. And if you wanted to continue to play, you kind of didn't want to miss out on a year and,
no matter the level.
Be rusty going into the next year. And a lot of guys got driven out and they had to retire and they started new jobs. But I think that Columbus year, I think we had
because it's so connected to this year.
It is.
This is part of the story that I think people don't understand. Some people think, Andres flashed a bunch of money and that's why all these guys came here. Yeah. No, you have to go back to that COVID year with Columbus and the relationship. And this is one of the things that you're so good at. It's not just networking or watching video or something like that. It's really the relationship that you have bonded over the years with some of these players that came in this year. And that really started in that year in Columbus.
It's 100%. Coaching nowadays is very much about personal relationships and how you relate to a player and how you can motivate them, how you can push their buttons or pull back. They need an arm around the shoulder, whatever it calls for. But that year, I think it opened up the eyes to a lot of SP players, and they started going, all right, what's going on here? And then you started to see that trickle down effect, and then you started to see more college kids get on board with it. And the college kids, when I first came in, it was hard to convince them to come here because they're like, this beer league, fighting league, all that stuff. And, I had to be a pretty good salesman, and I tend to undersell a little bit and over deliver, because then once they're here and they see how we're operating, they see our facility, they're like, man, why didn't I come here on the first call?
Right.
And I'm like, well, whatever. I'm just happy you're here now. And then they tell their friends about it, and the word just spreads, and it, makes this league better and better each year.
I know that there was the conversation 2 years ago, 39, we'll make 40. All right, now you hit 49. Let's try to hit 50. But almost in a way, it was good that you guys got that one loss, so you didn't have to worry about 50 no more at the end of the season. Probably stung you just a little bit, going, oh man, we're so close to that 50. But what a great regular season, and it almost mirrored last season. A really good long stretch of winning, a winning streak of 15 games this year, compared to, I think, the year before that was 18. Except for the Carolina and the PD 3 losses in a row, really no double back-to-back losses or 2 losses on a weekend type of thing. The 2 seasons kind of mirrored each other, but they probably feel very different to you.
100% feel different. I thought this year was harder. I think we had a lot more, tighter games. Yeah. And you need to lose to learn.
Right. I've said that so many times in the show.
And you can do a lot more with your losses and kind of, hold guys a little bit more accountable and not necessarily call them out, but just fix things. Yeah. And my biggest challenge is when you're winning a bunch and holding them accountable. And, we do our best job to do it, but you can't be as honest sometimes when you're winning like that, because it's like, come on, coach, like we got 40 wins on the air. But it's awesome, that we have had like a winning percentage of, 75% and above, maybe 800.
Yeah. Well, the last
winning
2 years,
percentage,
851.
851. That's unheard of, and usually single A and 56 game season, 58 game season, you're really gunning for 30 wins. You just want to make it to playoffs, and I'm not saying like next year, like I want more losses, but it would be pretty cool if the league was more competitive.
Yes.
So
So you're kind of rooting for Watertown and Danbury to be a little bit better, because if we play them, Motor City is going to be in the league. So if the Black Bears play them, you want them to be competitive as well. It's very important to play competitive teams, so you don't have to just go back to just Twin City, Athens, PD, and see the losses against teams who play at a higher caliber.
Yeah, for sure. Those teams will be better. I think, you put the right people in place, they're going to be better. So I expect, a bigger push from Watertown and Danbury next year. And you look at Danbury
Clarkey's back there. And when they had their most success, they had Clarkey there. And he's a kind of a guy who can recruit people and bring people together and whatnot. So that'll help. But Tia's going to be coaching down in Twin City. You know him a little bit on ice. And, so Gary Graham was great this year.
Yeah, for sure.
There's been improvements.
Oh, yeah.
Recently and just overall in the last couple of years with coaching. And, I think coaches are now looking at you and going, he's doing it there. I can go there and start there and do it there and then go on. And I think it probably started with Billy McCrary. Let's be honest. He 100%. Did a great job there in Danbury. I know this is a Binghamton Black Bears centric type of podcast, but Billy McCrary did a great job. And he kind of started that, and he's kind of progressed up a little bit.
I respect the hell out of Billy, and I had to have our team prepared every game against Billy. And, there's things that I took from him that I was noticing, like his face-off details and plays were top-notch. That's like AA, AAA level. And, he's definitely a pioneer of the league. And, I think more coaches are recognizing it more, and more organizations are like, hey, we got to hire the right people to bring in, good players and then train and coach them the right way.
Yeah. What was it like after the Final Four and sounded you guys win your third championship? What was going through your mind at that moment?
Just so happy for the guys that haven't won yet. And my big thing was our staff. Like, I love our staff. I think I said it every day. Best staff in the league. Staff in the league. And I was pumped for Q. I was pumped for Aiden. I was pumped for for John Brown, Corey Delaney, the guys.
John Brown was pumped for everybody.
he's still pumped.
He's still pumped, probably.
I hope he's up right now because he had a long night last night and he was having some fun. Just a little quick story. He's doing a lineup read at Stadium 138 last night, going Stoner, boom, we're clapping, and Stubbs going to clap, and then Dominic Tomei. Like it was. He's been electric throughout this celebration. It's been fun to watch. Same with Aiden too, and seeing these guys let loose after working hard all year, and even like Dom, like he doesn't drink during the year. He's very focused and determined, and seeing him let loose this week, it's been awesome. And they end up telling me a lot of stories that I didn't know throughout the year, so it's fun hearing about those. And guys going to a New York Rangers game, coming in playing hungover on a Tuesday practice, and I'm too naive to pick it up, and they're kind of all chuckling and stuff. So,
and he did take me to the Rangers game. Come on,
selfish.
Guys, if you're listening to this,
selfish.
You know I'm a Rangers fan, and I'll hide it.
Yeah. So I forgot what the initial question was, but we kind of went off on a tangent as soon as we started talking about John Brown. Oh, it was I was just super happy for the new guys to win because they're really gunning for it. And then for the guys that have been here a long time, it just to kind of complete the dynasty was very cool and special.
We haven't said that word yet, dynasty. Let's talk a little bit about the one thing that maybe people fought for on the ice a little bit harder in Game 4, and that was the fact that Austin D'Orazio was not in the lineup and unfortunately wasn't even at the arena. Was there any conversation before the game from you to say, listen, guys, we're doing this for D-Raz?
100%. That was my whole pregame speech for Game 4 was let's do this for number 11. And this guy D-Raz is making me emotional all week because he's the hardest worker, and
he wanted it.
He showed up every single day, and he was opening up the doors with me and closing the doors with me each and every day, and you get to hang out with these guys for 8 hours each and every single day, and you're gearing up for 7 months to get to that moment, and for him to not be on the ice with his guys and stuff was in the back of all our heads, and they really showed up for him. And
but
I love that kid.
We got great news this morning.
We did.
When I walked in here, he was here with his mom.
Yeah.
And he had a smile on his face. He said, "Everything is good. I'm good. I'm going to be good." And that was really nice to hear from him. Because I hadn't asked you. And I have reached out and asked you about certain guys here and there and whatnot, because you and I have that kind of relationship where I can do that, and you're either going to tell me, Bob, shut the hell up, leave me alone, or you'll say what's going on. And I, out of respect for D-Raz, because knowing a little bit of the situation, I just wanted to keep it quiet. But it was so good to see him here today, cleaning out his locker. Yeah, that's a kind of a sad part of it, but to see him and to see that he's healthy, and that's the important thing. Yeah,
he was just such a big impact player for us on and off the ice. His attitude off the ice is just amazing. Like, he had to deal with some big dog vets, and he was a little pup that they're kind of bossing around a little bit and stuff. But no, D-Raz's celebration night was last night, and he had a bunch of Dr. Peppers. So we had a ton of fun, and we're sharing stories and stuff. So it was awesome to kind of let him have his celebration moment. And these guys, I'm sure they really didn't want to go out after, drinking 3-4 days in a row. But they
did for him. Everyone
will muster up for that kid, and I'm just so proud of him. I do think he got shafted on D-Man of the Year, and he easily, I'm sure Stubbs would say this, he easily was in playoff MVP picture. Yeah. Same with Dom as well. Yeah. Ultimately, I do think they made the right choice with Stubbsy, but D-Raz, unbelievable human being, unbelievable worker. Mm-hmm. He's truly something special, and to see someone go through something serious like that is just it breaks your heart, and you almost feel like guilty about, having fun after the win and stuff, knowing that your buddy's in the hospital bed and stuff. But the guys were going over there every day, making sure they're playing cards with him and stuff, keeping his mind, off things and a little bit distracted from what was going on.
Well, we got great news this morning, obviously, about D-Raz. That's the important thing. All right, Coach, this is kind of like an exit interview, right? So I'm going to let you critique me for a second. One of the big conversations that I had on Monday night afterwards was with Dominic Tomei. All the fans had left. It was just me and Dom and then like 3 staff members who really wanted to go home and did not like that me and Dom sat for 30 minutes and talked. But Dom wanted to talk to me about my conversation about having Connor McAnanima, who was a 2-time Commissioner's Cup champion, goaltender behind him, and that if there was ever an issue that you needed to think about changing out goaltenders, you actually have probably the best backup you could ever have
100%.
in the wings. It was a great conversation. He and I talked about a lot of stuff, and it was an interesting thing. Tell me why my conversations on the Power Play Post Show about you having to think about having 2 great goaltenders, one who got you through the whole season and one who's been there for you before, why that was a conversation that didn't need to be had. Because when I asked you during the playoffs, did you ever think about changing Dom out for Connor, you said absolutely not. So why was my conversation maybe not appropriate or the right conversation to have?
Bob, it was totally appropriate. You're supposed to be reporting the team, and you're supposed to critique us. Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes guys don't like it. Sometimes I might not like it.
Dom said it fired him up to prove me wrong. And I got to be honest with you. I ended that night. He gave me the strongest hug of any of the guys. Because some of the guys, handshake, hug, that type of thing, it's all good. I get to know these guys really, really well. He gave me the biggest hug after that conversation was done. And then even today when I saw him earlier, big hug. So he didn't take it the wrong way. And I really appreciate that. But again, I have no problems with critiques.
Yeah, some guys, they use it as fuel. And you caught a little bit of our last of the exit meetings, and Dom was in here, and he'll throw a jab here and there because I throw jabs too. And when I was first watching video on Dom, I went in the Q's office and I was like, hey, I think I got a really good goalie, but he's small.
Yeah, right.
So today he's like, I'm like, oh, you're tremendous. And he goes, I know, but I was just a little too small, right? And, it's just a funny, little inside joke that I told him eventually. I was like, I didn't know if you're going to be able to get it done and stuff, but I have so much belief in that kid. And the team has a ton of belief in him. And that's what, sometimes people might not see is all those guys are saying Dom's our guy. And the coaching staff is saying Dom's our guy. And,
and even Connor said, Dom is your guy.
100%. And I was a little worried when we brought C-Mac back, and I probably shouldn't have been as worried because I know C-Mac's character is top notch as well, and he was the best teammate during this run. And he picked up Dom, he picked up the boys, he kept it light on the bench. He was communicating with me about some bad tendencies from other teams' goalies and stuff like that. So
that's great.
C-Mac was a huge part of it, and this was Dom's time to shine. And I'm happy he got the moment. I'm happy he got his first championship, and it's only the beginning for him.
And it was nice too because when you talk about Connor's character, when Dan Weaver came over and gave Dom the cup, I snapped a picture, and the picture has Connor's mouth open wider than I've ever seen it before because he was so happy for Dom. And that's what, I want to end it with that. I want to end it with, the conversation has to be had, or at least has to be thought about. And maybe Brant Sherwood sitting at home, Tucker's right next to you. You're thinking, maybe. But again, the conversation has to be had because you do have, that person on the other side there. But the fact of the matter is, Connor
was so happy for Dom in that situation, and that says a lot.
I think that just explains our overall locker room and our culture. Is like, no matter what,
the best locker room in the league.
Yeah, no, we're just one big family, and
yeah.
when someone goes down, next guy comes up, and then like, you know, maybe you're not in the position you like to be in.
Sure.
But you try to thrive on it and do what's best for the team and put your ego aside, and that's exactly what we do in this locker room.
Okay, so exit interviews are officially over with. Am I correct on that, or do you have a couple more to do?
No, it's officially over. I might have one phone call. Or I might have a couple phone calls. Like, I got to call CJ Hapward, but he was only, he was helping us on the weekends and stuff like that, so I'll have to catch up with him and kind of touch base there. But, yeah, pretty much all the exit interviews are
Explain to
done.
The fans again. I asked you this every year. Explain to the fans again what an exit interview is at the end of the season.
So, exit interviews, they go very smooth when you win.
Yes.
So there's not too many complaints from the player side of things. And the first thing I do is, hand them the ring sizer, and that kind of butters things up. And it's like, all right, let's get your ring size. And then we start getting into the nitty gritty of like, hey, when do you plan on leaving? Make sure your apartment's clean and ready for the next guy to come in and stuff. And then we get into improvements, like how we can improve as an organization, how Q and I can improve as coaches, and then their own personal improvements, some suggestions from our side, and then maybe just kind of picking their brain on what they think they need to work on going into next year, and kind of their plans for the summer, what are they doing for work, and all sorts of questions. And then they might bring up, some stuff during the year that they like, some good memories. Sure. Or like, we'll bring up something like, that game was amazing, or like, you really turned the corner at this point in the season. But yeah, we get a lot of feedback. Some of the feedback from the coaching side was doing a little bit more one-on-one video sessions, individual sessions and stuff like that. And then they wanted more mini games, a little bit more competition practice. So that was noted. At some point during the year, they said it got a little too country club in there, and we had some comfy cats going on. But overall, I think everyone knows that, like, the coaches, we have the best interests for the players, and we're still trying to get better, and this is a developmental league for us as well. So I try to get, as much as I'm giving them feedback, I want feedback on how I can get better, and whether it's my approach, my message to the team, maybe some tweaks in the schedule or practices, stuff like that, that I take very serious, and I try to grow each and every year.
Now, take this with the humor that it's meant to be. You got the monkey off your back. You won a championship without Don Olivieri.
Oh, man. Yeah. I listen to Don, and, Don is, his legacy lives on, because he was a big part of this team, and
even though he was such a small part of sometimes the team,
that guy's personality, you can't deny it. So when he showed up every weekend, the guys were excited about him being in the locker room, and I think I said it many times that, like, we really missed his shot this year, and his craftiness with the puck and his poise. But yeah, we got it done without Don, but I know I listened to you guys, and he was watching the entire time, and he believed in us the whole way. And that's the type of support you want from guys that have previously played here. They're still engaged, and they're still rooting for the team, which is awesome.
And here's something for the fans that the fans don't know, and maybe you don't even know. When I announced that we were going to have a former champion coming back, I was actually talking with Jacob Shankar, because we did an interview with him up in the press box just a few weeks ago, and during the playoffs. And I said, I got a former champion come back. Is it Don? And what's funny about that, he didn't play with Don.
No.
But the legend of Don Olivieri lives on, that even one of the new guys was excited that I was having Don on the show.
He's awesome. We were telling a story about him last night. One that I cannot share because it probably get the team in trouble with the league, but it happened against Danbury like two years ago. But Don, we still have his card up on the ledge when you're walking out, and it's his player card, and it says ELE, everyone love everyone, because he was a part of the kind of the fiasco in the first year where, we didn't have the best characters in the locker room, and he just kept repeating ELE, ELE, and that kind of carried into next year, and he's made his stamp. It's just too bad guys aren't eating as many Twizzlers in the penalty box as he was.
Well, my joke the whole season long was nobody wanted any candy because Q was going to get on their ass.
Yeah, I don't know what he would have done if he saw a Twizzler going into someone's mouth across the way. No, it's funny because Q's the ice cream guy.
Yeah, so, I know. That's the best part. We found out that this year.
We have some ice cream sandwiches in the back, too, that he bought. So he does like to reward the boys, and he's been a ton of fun to work with.
We've talked about him all year long every time that we've talked, but I snapped a picture of you presenting him the cup, and you almost gave him a slight bow. Can you explain what you were doing there when you handed Q the cup? I just wanted to give him his flowers because he's personally helped me a lot as a coach, and he's made me a better person, and just more self-accountability on my part. He showed me the ropes in a way, how it's done in the National Hockey League, and one thing that he brought to my life that's just, kind of changed me a bit is just like being healthy and working out every day with him. So we did 33 weeks in a row. Wow.
And I think, getting that energy out helped me on the bench. I wasn't all over the officials as much, and he taught me a lot of things with professionalism and how to talk to referees, and sometimes, to lay off the guys and not be as harsh on them. And he's his habits and details are undeniable for his IQ of the game, and he brought in a couple concepts to this team that I think really
raised the level.
It raised it big time. Like some of our tracking rules with our back checking, he brought that to life. Our slash support from our weak side winger when teams are pinching down on that strong side winger on the wall, and obviously our power play. He's the coach of the power play, and he's the reason why that our power play and special teams was so successful this year. I don't think it ended number one in the league. Maybe it was 2, but you saw it in playoffs. We won a lot of games based on special teams. And
the penalty kill was just outstanding all year long from the beginning until the end. And you did it with different people, because there were times when Tyson couldn't be on the penalty kill because he was out and he was on the bench with you. There were other players that had to, came in and out of that penalty kill. So it was the special teams splitting it up between 2 coaches really did help you guys be able to concentrate on both at the same time, not just one or the other.
So sharing the workload, it helped me tremendously, and I was able to enjoy this year more with less stress, and being able to hang out with someone every day that's not a player.
Yeah.
Because you have that guard up with the player a little bit. Yeah, you can let loose and sometimes, but sometimes you have to be their coach, and you have to demand things out of them. So this has been the most memorable hockey season of my entire life, and probably the most fun because of John Quimbo is here.
Nice.
And he really pushed the pace of this team, and I don't know if we would have won without him in our third season.
I did send that picture to him in a text message congratulating him and telling him, and he said it was just such a special moment for him, which was really nice. All right, lastly, before I let you go, plans for the summer. I know last year you went to Italy. Do you and Gemma have anything extravagant planned this summer? Not that you have to give any
super details.
No, I'll give some details. Short forecast. I'm either heading back to Philly today or tomorrow morning, and we're going to the PGA Championship.
Nice.
First golf event I've ever been to. I'm going to try to follow Scotty around.
Is this a working event for her? Because I know a lot of times with
she got her tickets. She chose to bring me as her client though, so she could have got it for free if she brought a client. But we just kind of wanted to spend some time together and enjoy Saturday. But we're going to California next week. My parents they have a house out there, so we're gonna house sit, I guess, nice. And keep it up and tidy. But we're gonna have some fun. I think we're gonna go up to Napa Valley, to wine country and explore the West Coast a little bit. Nice. I'm not going to go see any of the California teams, I promise you that. But we're going to have some fun and get away from hockey. And I owe this to Gemma for her allowing me to. She calls it my passion project, not necessarily a job, but she's the biggest supporter of my life, and she's my partner in crime, and I absolutely love her. That she is on board with this and is so supportive, and as my Q helps me a ton with this team, but Gemma helps me a ton with this team.
She's your sounding board.
She's my sounding board, and
I know that.
She I'll say, hey, this happened at the rink today, or there's a problem with this player. Bob said this on the show, and she adds a ton of perspective for me, and she always goes back to kind of what we've built of our team culture. And a lot of times when I was struggling, with maybe a player decision or something, she's like, is he a good guy though? Is he good to be around? Does he work hard? And it sounds so simple that you should know that, but some of these decisions are so hard that you need to bounce these ideas off the right people. And Gemma, I think she deserves a title, much like Tucker, in this organization. Like, everyone's a part of it. Everyone's trying to contribute to the Black Bears, and it's what makes our organization so special.
Awesome. Coach, thank you very much. As always, it's always a pleasure. Can't wait to see what's next, whether it's here, somewhere else, or whatever may be on the horizon for anybody and all the players,
of course,
and whatnot. But thank you very much for always giving me the time, coming on the show, and just, playing around with me here on the podcast.
I don't think we have a guy that, covers a team better. Like, this is... you're a big part of this locker room, and you're a big part of my Thursday morning routine. And like I've said in the past, I get to know my players in a different light. Yeah. Because sometimes we're just joking around in here a little too much, and you can get them to talk about some serious topics, and I get to find out about their childhood a little bit and stuff, and where they came from, and them talk about their appreciation for their parents. And you just kind of you open the door, and you show the personality of these guys to our fans, and we appreciate it a ton, man. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Awesome. And we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was Brant Sherwood. We were in the offices with him. And you saw some of the video online, and, got to see some of the previews to that interview. And, well, that was the full interview right there with me and Brant Sherwood in his office. I think the second year in a row. I think after the first championship, it was a phone conversation. But this time we did it in the office like we did last year. Taylor, before we get into your thoughts on that, let me go through. I'm going to have you go through because, no, actually, I think it's me. Yeah, it's me. All right. Brant Sherwood has had a pretty good career here with the Binghamton Black Bears. We talked a little bit about the record a little bit before, but let's do this part first, and then we'll talk about the thoughts on the Brant Sherwood interview, because I think it felt a little differently than last year's. In the 22-23 season, he joined the team after Gary Gill left for personal reasons. The team went 22-10-3 with him under the helm, and then they went 3-2 in the playoffs, lost to the Danbury Hat-Tricks, who went on to win the championship. The last team to win a championship other than the Binghamton Black Bears was the Danbury Hat-Tricks. Empire Division's been pretty good in that sense, right, Taylor? Because if you think about it, you go back 1 year before that, it was the Watertown Wolves. So Watertown, Danbury, and Binghamton have won the last 5 championships here in the FPHL. So some of those other teams,
which is crazy to think about, because the continental side is always like, oh, well, you guys have the easier competition,
and yet we've won the championships.
Yeah.
Interesting about that. Now in 2023-24, the Black Bears went 39-10-7, and then they went 7-0 in the playoffs to win their first championship. Now, what was interesting about that 39, it didn't sit well with Brant Sherwood. He's like, nope, don't like those odd numbers, need to win 40 next year. So in 24-25, the Black Bears went 49-6-1, and they went 7-1 in the playoffs. They lost that one game to the Port Huron Prowlers. I think it was a shutout in Port Huron until they came back and then won 2 in a row against the Prowlers. Both shutouts as well for Connor McAnanima, right? Okay, so you had 49, and still, again, I don't really like those odd numbers, right? So Brant Sherwood was like, we need to end on an even number. Well, they did this year. In 2025, 2026, they went 48-6-2, a 7-2 record in the playoffs, lost twice, once to Port Huron, and of course, once to PD. Now, the totals since Brant Sherwood has come into this league and run this team is 158. The Black Bears in the last 3.5 years are 158, 32-13, and are 24-5 all time in the playoffs, which is insane. Your thoughts on just those numbers that Brant Sherwood, as head coach of the Binghamton Black Bears, has been able to communicate or accumulate? Wow.
It's definitely, it's something to look at, and, kind of just reading the numbers. I mean, you look at the years, and, we always talk about Connor in the playoffs, and then, this run in the playoffs wasn't even Connor, and yet they were like, everything's been so similar between the season and last season. Like, the numbers look really identical, and it's just crazy to kind of look at. But then to look at the totals and realize like 158, 32-13 is an insane number to look at. And then 24-5 for the playoffs is also it's a crazy number to look at. And, we went 7-0 and then 7-1 and 7-2. So we're slowly losing the touch there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we lost one game and then turned right around and had a super dominant game. And it was like our playoff run this year started off kind of slow, where they were like really close, like edge of the seat kind of game, where you're like, oh, we're only we have one goal. And, you're just hoping that, the game doesn't tie or they don't get 2 goals on us. And, that's, again, like, defense really showed up this season. And then we had those games with PD, and you're like, wow, like, what happened? Like, did something, like, who lit the fire under them kind of thing? And it's just what Brant has done. And I know, like, it's something that you and I talk about all the time. And, like, the rest of the league kind of, I feel like the rest of the league, for certain people, because I do think there are people that truly do like Brant out there, but it feels like the league itself kind of looks down on Brant and kind of like looks down on Binghamton and kind of like, like we're a blemish on their record type of thing. And it's so crazy to think that like the league would look at us any kind of way considering what he has done.
I 100% agree with you. And it's too bad when you look at these numbers and you think, well, how was he not coach of the year before this? I mean, he he came into the off season, or the playoff season, didn't think he was going to win Coach of the Year, because if he couldn't win it with a 49-6-1 record and being 7-1 in the playoffs, or 14-1 in the 2 years before that in the playoffs, and not win Coach of the Year, why would he think he would win Coach of the Year this year? So he was really taken back a little bit when he found out that he won Coach of the Year. But again, I think what it comes down to is he really deserved it. I think the league recognized that he matured a lot this year, got into less arguments with the referees, got into less arguments with other head coaches, other than maybe Chris Paul in the one time. You know, he truly just kind of matured a little bit, and he recognizes that as well. But Taylor, let's talk a little bit about this third championship. Why don't you read this little part, and then we'll talk about Brant Sherwood's interview.
3 championships, only the 4th team in minor league history to win 3 titles in a row. Springfield, Indiana Indians, who won 3 straight Calder Cups from 1960 to 1962 in the AHL. Fort Wayne Comets, who captured 3 consecutive Turner Cups from 2008 to 2010 in the IHL, and the Florida Everblades, who won 3 straight Kelly Cups from 22 to 24 in the ECHL.
Yeah, they were the most recent ones, and I think the Everblades are still involved in the ECHL playoffs as we speak now, which would be, if they won this year, it'd be 4 and 5 seasons, which is also pretty insane, because I think the ECHL is the hardest league to run, for the simple fact that you have to deal with NHL people and you have to deal with self-contracting players like they do in the SPHL and the FPHL. So you got to blur those two things together, which is difficult. I am interested in your thoughts on the Brant Sherwood interview. I felt like this year it was a little bit different, a little bit more laid back, a little bit more retrospective on his part, which maybe that was because of the questions I asked, or maybe it was because of just the way he was feeling, knowing that maybe are we getting close to the end of Brant Sherwood here in Binghamton. I mean, at some point, someone's going to come a-calling, and he's going to be like, yep, that's a good opportunity. I need to go. Your thoughts on this interview?
I've truly enjoyed the interview. I really, the way that Brant talks about things, and I mean, this became clear to me. I think it was one of the very first Tullies that we went to, I think, ever. So this was, a couple seasons ago. Mm-hmm. We had gone there, and, Jeremy was very much like, he's the kind of, he wants everybody's signature type of thing. And I'm always like just sitting off back to the side. Like if he wants a picture, then that's what I do. I don't usually interact with the players in that aspect. And he walked up to Brant and wanted his signature, and he was like, no, like, make sure you get the players first. Like he puts everybody else above him, and he's just so focused on like making sure, the team is good and, players are good, and, watching out for, Gavin Yates, who he had a scare this year, and, some head injuries going on. And, I remember a conversation that you and I had, and we were like, is his significant other okay with this? Because at one point she was very angry about what was going on. And, I'd reached out to her, and she was very much like, she trusts Brant and Q so much with their decision-making on, if they wanted Gavin to play and if Gavin felt okay enough to play, that she like fully trusted that.
And he addressed that in the interview, about,
and I think it's just one of those things that truly shows the kind of person that he is. And like, to him, this isn't just hockey. Like, this isn't just a game. It truly matters, like, what these guys are doing. And I think he talks about that as well. As kind of, it's almost hard to realize, like, you have to be the coach to these guys sometimes, and you can't always, be that, like, let them lean on you. And, like, sometimes you have to give them that structure and have to be like, that hard ass, I guess you could say. And, the way that he talks about, like, all the differences that Q has brought to him and coach, and just like a better person overall. He talks about, settling down and, doing all these crazy work, less stressed on the bench, which to me was, I think, the funniest part about it is he's like, I get all this energy out doing these workouts with Q that, I don't have, all that pent up stuff on the bench, and I'm not yelling at the refs and everything, which to me kind of like, it's taking something that's like almost so serious, because, we talk about all the time, like, we don't blame the refs just people and they're just doing their jobs. And it's something that such a serious thing sometimes, but he took it as such like a lighthearted thing where, they're doing these things to better themselves, but it also just helped them overall with just their mindset alone when it came to games.
No,
just.
You still there?
Yeah, I didn't know if you were going.
That was interesting that he talked about the workouts with Q and whether or not and how that affected him, how that he burned all that energy and that there was a calmness on the bench a little bit more. And because he and I have had talks and I talked about this with him multiple times here on the show as well, where he still thought he was a player. He still thought he was a player his first year, his second year, his third year. I think the separation between him and the players happened a little bit more this year, which was good because he could have a little bit more introspective thought process going on inside of him of how was the best way to handle certain situations and not be throwing water bottles in the stands, and hitting fans with a water bottle. Those type of things are not things that you want from a head coach when you go into the higher leagues and whatnot. And, you don't even want that here in the Fed as well. So I think there was a very interesting thought process there that the workouts with Q helped kind of like channel some of that aggression, some of that, like, I want to still be a player type of situation. And he was able to benefit from that, which was just impressive to me. What else struck you from this interview?
Just kind of like from what you and I talk about all season long, and just, we always talk about Brant and, the things that he does and the moves that he makes and just overall, like what he has done to this team, this league in general.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear Brant talk, he doesn't, pat himself on the back. He doesn't, congratulate himself. He doesn't really talk about himself in that sense of like, this is happening because of me. Like he thanks everybody else and he talks about everybody else around him.
Yeah.
And even the locker room mindset, he, attributes that to Don Olivieri and the everybody love everybody. And, just the way that they talk about those things. And, because the whole, like we talk about the good guys first thing and, having the good players in the locker room. And we always talk about Brant and that kind of mindset. And he talks about Don and, a lot of it was, when he was getting rid of all the players on the team and he was, there was a garage sale going on. But the way that he is able to just kind of look at everything else and have like the appreciation that he has for what is going on, I think is what strikes me. And, that's why I kind of said, like, I think my favorite part is the way that he gets at the end there and, all the support he does have from Gemma and like the way that she's there for him. And even though she's not like physically here for him, during the games and stuff,
right.
But the way like that she just supports him just so wholeheartedly. And, everybody else, like the fans, the team, Q, just like all of these guys that are behind him, supporting him.
Yeah.
And the way that he's able to talk about that is, I think, probably my favorite part.
Yeah. I hear you. It was definitely a good interview. I believe a lot of great answers from him. And again, hopefully I have a couple more interviews with Brant Sherwood in the future, whether it be a part of the Black Bears organization or if he's moved up. We don't know, fans, so don't read into any of this. But at the end of every single season, every single player and every single coaching person is on a 1-year contract, which means that Brant Sherwood, if he were to return back with the Binghamton Black Bears, would have to sign a new contract with Andreas Johansson because they do it a one year by 1 year. So when I talk that way, it doesn't mean that I know that he's going somewhere else. It's just that at this point, he's won 3 championships. He should be going up to another level. So this is not wishful thinking because I'm not like wishing him away, but it's wishful thinking because I want to see his career advance. And I know he wants to see his career advance. And if he goes, he definitely goes. But it's a great thing. Hopefully I have a couple more interviews with him. And then someday when he's in the NHL and his team's in Madison Square Garden, I am cashing in on all this goodwill that I've given him for some damn good tickets there at MSG. Just to say that, hey, the head coach of this NHL team got me tickets at MSG. I just want to be able to put that on my docket before I pass away. So, not that I'm passing away anytime soon, I don't think. That's the way this got dark really fast. With that said, she's laughing in the background because what else can you do here? As Bob's putting his foot in his mouth. All right, before the show gets to be 3 hours, and it still could be at this point, let's go to our next interview, which is with CJ Stubbs. I recorded with this while he was driving to Utah to go home because, yes, some guys want to get home and visit with their family. I think Zach Sirota is already with his family, and he's home. I've seen some other guys. I know of some guys are going to stay in Binghamton for a while. Ivan Bondarenko, Dan Weber's going to be here. I think Tyson's already got residence somewhere. So, but CJ was on the road. He was close to Erie, Pennsylvania when I talked to him here for this interview. And then I touched base with him the next day to see how he was doing. And he said he was about an hour and a half away from home. So CJ is probably already home. I do want to say, it was a pleasure to get to meet his parents, who I know don't get a chance to come out to Binghamton that very often over the past 2 years. So it was great to finally get to meet them. And guys, thank you very much for listening to us. Taylor and I are amazed about how many family members do listen to the Power Play Post Show. So thank you so much. It's so awesome. Right, Taylor?
It definitely is until, I put my foot in my mouth and, I say something that I probably shouldn't say, or I get, picked on the next game that I see said person at. But, it's all fun and love and war.
Oh,
but yeah,
the Shankars love you. The Shankars love you.
It's been so much fun.
Yeah, it is. So coming up next year in the Power Play Post Show is CJ Stubbs, and we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
You're listening to the Power Play Post Show. Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. Very excited to have this gentleman back on. He is the MVP of the Commissioner's Cup playoffs. He is now obviously a two-time Commissioner's Cup champion as well. And he's one of the best guys I've gotten to talk to here with the Binghamton Black Bears. He is their forward, CJ Stubbs. CJ, welcome back to the show. And please, before we get too far into this, tell everyone where you are right now.
Yeah, Bob, thanks for having me on. I think we talked about a month ago or so, but it's good to be back on. But yeah, right now I'm about 4 hours away from Binghamton. I think I'm somewhere near Erie, Pennsylvania, or close to it. So just trekking along right now.
And you're obviously heading home to Utah. And you're leaving a little bit sooner than some of the other guys are, obviously to get back home. First of all, you have the longest trek probably, I think, of anybody to get home. Or I think Dom has to go to Florida to go home. Talk about your feelings about this season for you here in Binghamton. Taylor and I talked about it multiple times on the show where you just got a better start this year, a little bit quicker start than you did last year when you joined the Black Bears a little bit into the season. But what were your thoughts about this season for you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely started off, hot this year, and it helped kind of coming into training camp and kind of knocking off any rust I had in the summer or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, last year it was a little different, kind of battling through injuries during the summer and coming into such an established team and, defending champs and such a good core. And I haven't played with any of them. I might have known about some of them, like I knew Kirkby and C-Mac from, running hockey camps with them.
Yeah.
But I just heard nothing but good things. And so I kind of was, I was just filling in a role and trying to, provide for the team and, and that was it. And then, this year just, I feel like I had a little bit more on my plate this year. I just wanted to, we were missing, a few pieces with Don and Bon and, some of the other guys, Fletch. And yeah, just there's more to step up and kind of lead the team. And it was nice to have, a good start. So it was, overall, it was a great season from start to finish. And obviously, winning the championship was the cherry on top.
No, 100%. And in the regular season, you had 39 goals and 58 assists for 97 points. And you let Ivan Bondarenko beat you in the point total. Was there a little bit of fun competition between the two of you guys? And let's be perfectly honest. Nobody could set up a player to score a goal better than Ivan Bondarenko. You are probably number 2 behind that, but he is such a special player on the ice with the way he skates and the way he can send passes in, not only to you, but he also sent them to Tyson. And, you guys had such a great chemistry on the ice all season long. But was there a little bit of fun competition between you guys at the end when it came to the points total?
It's funny because I'm sure there was a little bit of competition there, but I think both of us were like, I think we told each other multiple times, like, yeah, let's try and get to 100. We're right there. Like, yeah, obviously, like it was me and Bondo for, the whole year together. And I was, like you said, he's such an incredible passer. He sees the ice so well, but, yeah, I mean, he played all 56 games. He was in the lineup every night. He's played, penalty kill, power play. It was just such a force for us all year. And I think, it's pretty fitting for him to, get that extra point and kind of surpass me in that sense. And, he won forward of the year, which was incredible. Super happy for him. Our whole team, it was a no-brainer, well-deserved. So, yeah, I mean, I think it was maybe a little bit of competition there, but at the same time, like we were both working together, trying to, that main goal and just trying to do as best we can.
One of your other line partners this year, Mac Jansen, was very emotional, especially after the Port Huron series, and I think very emotional after winning the championship. I know the story behind Mac Jansen coming to the Binghamton Black Bears, and some of it doesn't need to be shared with the fans. But he was such a great teammate for you guys. He felt terrible about not being in Game 2 against Port Huron, and then comes in to Game 3 and helps you guys in such a big way. Can you talk a little bit about Mac Jansen for a few minutes? Because he was one of your line mates a lot for this year as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. I'd love to talk about Mac Jansen. He's one of my best friends. I've spent a lot of time with him. I've lived with him, and that guy cares about his team, about his teammates more than anybody. That's why he's so emotional. He loves the game. He loves, what it's provided him in his life. So, it's missing him. That second game was obviously, a big reason why we lost that game. And he came in that next day in the locker room with nothing but, energy. So huge part of why we, won the cup, but mainly, getting past Port Huron. Obviously, he had those big time goals. Yeah. And that's just what he does. He scores big time goals when you need them. And yeah, I'm just so happy for him. And I'm so glad he was able to, come to Binghamton and get to experience this with, everybody that he knows and with Jersey. So yeah, super happy for him. Love the guy. And yeah.
CJ, you and Bondo again in the playoffs, running neck to neck in points. Both had 11 points. He had 11 assists for his 11 points. You had 6 goals and 5 assists. How did you feel during the playoffs? Did you think that throughout the playoffs you were the best that you could be and the most consistent you could be throughout the playoffs? Because I think without you, Bondo, Austin DeRazio, who we all know, had to miss game 4 of the playoffs, which was heartbreaking for everybody, but he's still a champion. That's all that matters, is that he is a champion, just like the rest of you guys. But how did you feel throughout the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think started off hot in the Topeka series, and obviously as, you win, you advance, you play better and better teams. And Port Huron, it was a very, low scoring series. It was very defense oriented. We, it's just tough style of hockey against Port Huron. So you got to give them credit there. But, it's playoffs are weird. It's obviously you're taking the next step in intensity and all that. So obviously would have loved to score a lot more, but there's more intangibles than, just scoring. And I think that's why our team was so good, because not everyone has to score goals, but if you're playing the right way, you're getting to the net, you're good with the puck chipping pucks in, getting on the forecheck, playing good defensively. So I think, obviously Bondo with 11 assists, pretty fitting for his whole year. But
yeah,
obviously I won MVP, but I think you could have given it to, I could go down the list and talk about how awesome everybody played, and it really could have gone to anybody, but just so thankful it did go to me. But truly it could have gone to anybody. Kurtz, he stepped up big in the playoffs. You just saw a whole nother level with him, and D-Raz and Stoner and Ando, and I could go down the list and talk about how awesome everybody played. And it's not all about, scoring goals, but thank goodness we started scoring goals in game, 3 and 4. But that's all I got to say about that.
You do have a 20-hour drive. We could go through every single player. We could go through every staff member. How about the
100%? 100%. We could talk about it all, and I'm down. So if you want to do it, let's do it.
One of the guys that I wanted to get your opinion on is Kyle Steffen. He's a former D1 player. He was on all 3 of the championship teams here in Binghamton, but I felt that his game changed the most this year in the playoffs versus last year in the playoffs, where this year he really went out there and he was just that big, huge pest. And in a different way than maybe Zach Sirota was a pest, even though in some cases they were on the same line together. But Kyle went out there and he was just so nasty with people. And it was just so beautiful to see, talking about Tyson Kirkby, who definitely always amps it up in the playoffs. He always amps it up when he gets into the big game moments. But Kyle Steffen this year and I know you didn't play on a line with him, but you got to watch him play. What were your thoughts on the way he stepped up and changed his play this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's another guy I could talk about. And, I think he understood his role towards the end there, and what he was able to do, just be a pest and just forecheck and be a big body. And, with the compliments of, Swain and Sarge, they were just so effective.
Yes.
All playoffs, especially that final series. And, it's so hard to play against when they just are relentless and keep coming. And, they're all so strong and big. And yeah, he had huge goals for us in the last 2 games. So yeah, no, Steph, he's obviously a Division I hockey player. He's obviously, a 3-time champ for a reason. And yeah, I'm glad, everyone were able to see just how awesome he is and how effective he is, when he plays as hard as he can and is that pest. And yeah, he's just, I'm happy for him too. He played awesome.
Talk a little bit about what it was like when you guys went down game 1 in the finals, because I have to imagine that nobody on that team thought, oh yeah, we're going to go down game one in the finals against PD. Yes, it's a team that has played outstanding in the past 2 months, but your guys' belief in the locker room is a lot different than most teams out there. And was it something that kicked you guys in the ass for game two, or was it something where like, okay, this is serious. These PD Ice Cats are here to play?
Oh yeah. I mean, like the last 2 years we've swept in the finals, and then obviously we get PD and we see that they're a 500 team or below 500 team. So I think, we went down there, and we kind of, took them a little lightly, and they punched us in the mouth early, and, we felt it. We had to flush it quick, but the next day, it was all business. It was pretty intense, honestly. And I was telling Jersey earlier today, yesterday in our meetings, and he's such a good motivator. He knows what it takes to, get the guys going. And I think we really listened to him, and we took it to him game two. Obviously that first period was awesome for us. And then Brandon did a little bit of penalty trouble, but yeah, I think it, ever since that first game of getting punched in the mouth, was a big wake-up call for us, and obviously didn't look back. So, yeah.
CJ, then let's go 7 more days later to the next Friday, which was game 3 in Binghamton. You guys won 8-1. You had 7 different goal scorers. I think Garrett Sargis, who was like the big surprise to me of being a guy who's going to go and score multiple goals in a playoff game or in a finals game, he scores 2. And then there are 6 other goal scorers in that game. I have to imagine that there was absolutely zero way that you guys were going to go into that game at home in Binghamton in front of a sellout crowd and not put on the best performance. Because to me, and I'm going to say, and I've said this on record already, that was the best game you guys played all season long, which was game 3 in the finals.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think everyone feels the same way. I know I've talked to multiple guys on the team, during this past few days, and we all say that was 100% our best game all year, and what a time to do so. But I mean, that leading up to that game, it was a lot of nerves. I felt it. I know other guys felt it. And, coming out with that first period that we had, again, just smothering them and just absolutely dominating. I think that really was able to, let us kind of relieve a little bit of that stress. And like you said, 7 different goal scorers, big time goals for us. And I think that's just a testament of how deep our team really was. And I don't think anything was stopping us, but yeah, it was definitely pretty nerve wracking leading up to it.
What's amazing, CJ, is like, yeah, it's an 8-1, and then we forget about the one thing: how good the defense was that night as well. That starts obviously with Dominic Tomei, who was outstanding through the finals, and of course the defense just played well. And for me, one of the things that I said is better this year than last year, even though the numbers are all very similar when it comes to goal scoring and what you guys gave up. I said that the team defense this year was so good. I know that you and Bondo and Mac Jansen were all thinking about, all right, how do we get as many pucks in the back of the net? But I also believe that defensively, team defense, which means forwards playing two-way, which is very, very important, especially if you're going to win a championship. You guys all executed that this year so well. Dominic Tomei had 7 shutouts. Connor McAnanama had a shutout. Brandon Chance had a shutout. And then I think, if I remember correctly, Dominic Tomei had like 10 one-goal games. Team defense was just amazing this year.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it all starts with, the backbone with Dominic Tomei. Like, another guy you just can't talk enough about him. He played awesome all year. He was our rock for us all year in the back end, and played awesome in the playoffs every night. So, we have that confidence in him back there that, he's gonna bail us out if we ever need to, and he definitely did. And obviously you have our whole decor. I mean, Stone, obviously he's a rock. We all know it. He is very underrated. I don't think he gets the credit that he truly deserves. But D-Raz is just hungry, and he's always, he's offensive too. So he was a big help for us. And then obviously Ando and Scotty and everybody, and Chichu comes in and he plays lights out the last two games. Just everybody was so bought in defensively, and we knew our roles, and obviously forwards, just like I said, playoffs is another level of intensity, and we all have that experience with, past few champions and wherever we played before that. So I think experience was definitely a huge part in the defensive play for sure.
So give me the feeling the final second ticks off. You guys are now champions. It's a three-peat for the Binghamton Black Bears. It's your second in a row with the team. Talk to me a little bit about that feeling that you felt once that happened.
Yeah, I think it's just elation. It's just a lot of stress released. Just so happy for the guys, and all the hard work and adversity we dealt with through the year. Just pure elation. I'm just so happy for everybody, and we were able to get the job done, and 3-time champions, obviously. And the core guys, Kirk B just was a rock for us all year, and just such a great leader. And so it was pretty awesome.
Okay. So, one of the things, and we kind of touched upon it just a little bit, but I want to get your thoughts on it. When you guys go into game 4, and obviously D-Raz is not there in the locker room, and he's taking care of some medical situation. I asked Brant about this, and he said, the pregame speech was a little bit about D-Raz. When you guys went out there for game 4, was there any way you guys were going to lose that game, knowing that you were battling for one of your teammates that was unfortunately couldn't be there, that should have been there?
Yeah. I mean, obviously so tough to not have him. He's our brother. Like, this locker room was so strong, and he was so good for us. Defenseman of the year, he was so good for us all year. And it was definitely the main thing was, let's go do it for D-Raz. Let's go do it for each other. We weren't going to lose. I don't think we would have, if we would have dropped two in PD, I don't think we would have lost one at home. So we were winning this thing, and, losing D-Raz obviously sucked, put a hole in our lineup, but we pulled it out for him, and you could tell everyone was really rallying behind him. So,
it's one of those things where, with D-Raz, going down, it opened up a moment also because, Cheech and Cam Cervone could both be on the ice as well. And sometimes, because I was talking about this with Coach a little bit, sometimes those are just moments that you hope that these other players also can just take, and cherish as well, even though it's for a situation that maybe, you're not necessarily happy about it, right? But, for someone like Cheech, who came in and, we've all talked to Cheech, we've all had conversations with him. We know how great of a guy Cam Cervone is, but to be able to say that those two guys could be on the ice for that final game was great. And again, hard for D-Raz, but great for them as well.
Yeah, obviously, it's been a next up mentality all year.
Yes.
And obviously CC, he's in and out of the lineup in the, last few games, but I'm truly happy for the guy. I love CC. He's great in the locker room. He's an awesome player, and I'm happy he was able to, be on on the ice to, you know, throw the helmets and gloves, and he played awesome. And same with Cheech, like he played awesome. And yeah, what a good time to have your best couple of games of the year. So yeah, I'm super happy CC was inserted back in the lineup because he truly deserved it.
All right. So one final question, and then before we talk about what your plans are for the summertime, but I have to ask you, were you on the bench or were you on the ice when the final click went off, the clock?
Yeah, I was on the ice.
Oh, you were? Okay. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I was forechecking, and I blocked kind of a pass up attempt, and I just kind of, 8 seconds, 5 seconds left. And yeah, I think we all just raised our stick and skated towards Dom before the buzzer even rang.
He was jumping up and down with like 7 seconds left.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I think we were all like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, that was great. Dom jumping up and down, like 7 seconds left. Kind of scared a few people because last thing you want is somehow a puck to go flying in and everything. But he was so excited. And that's probably one of the best parts about this, right, CJ? Because you'd won championships even before you came to Binghamton, is seeing some of these first-time players, first-year pros getting to win a championship like that, whether it be Dom or Cheech or whoever it might be. It's just an amazing thing that you get to share with them.
Oh, yeah. No, exactly. And as those, that's why it's tough not having Raz there because he truly deserved it.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's those young guys were so crucial for us all year. Dom was a rock. He was our guy all year. And, I mean, obviously I've had a few championships now, and it's those first ones feel the hardest, but yeah, I'm happy all those guys were able to experience it, and I was able to, experience it with them. And yeah, I'm just so freaking happy for the fellas. So yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's talk about the summertime. What's the plan for you in this summertime? You work full time when you're out there, right?
Yeah, I've usually I've cleaned carpets in the past few summers, but yeah, I'm just still trying to figure out what the plan is. I'm gonna get home and spend some time with my girlfriend and the family, and kind of figure out what's next on the the career path here. But yeah, so we'll see.
I got to meet your parents this weekend, which was really great to do. One of the really nice perks for me is being able to, not only just get to talk to you guys and to do the show and tell your guys a story, but to see the impact sometimes that it has even on your family. Because families, I've always said, CJ, and I think I've talked to you about this in the past, families have been so important for a lot of you hockey players to get where you are. But it was a pleasure to get to meet your parents.
Yeah. I'm glad you were able to meet them too. I'm glad they were here, and I know they wanted to meet you because, you do such a great job covering the team. And, obviously you were in the locker room, and I've seen, a couple of posts saying like, I don't feel like I deserve to be in there or whatnot. But, this Binghamton hockey is a family, and you do such a great job of, covering the team, as well as just, you speak so highly of us. And, I'm happy you were able to be in the locker room and enjoy the celebration with us.
That was fun.
Got some great pics of the boys. So
that was a lot of fun. I got to be honest with you, that was a lot of fun. Ando invited me in, and I said, I can't go in there. That's for you guys, right? Because I truly believe that is for you guys. And then I walked through the door to head towards the locker room, and all the girlfriends are there. There's like girlfriends and all these people on the outside. And I saw Malik's standing up on one of the stalls, and I went over by him, and I was just in complete awe because I've covered all 4 championships that Binghamton has won, the Calder Cup, and obviously now these 3. And I never thought that was like a moment where I could be in there and just to kind of in kind of in my own way, I enjoyed it as much as you guys did, being able to watch you guys do that. And somebody hit me with a little bit of champagne and I wasn't mad about it at all. I was actually kind of happy about it. So,
good.
And I think it was either Ando or Kyle Steffen. One of those two got me for sure. But it was great. And, I'm very happy for you guys. When do you start thinking about a next season? If you are thinking about a next season, when does that start for you?
You got it in the back of your mind right now, but yeah, I just want to get home, take some time away from hockey. Don't even want to think about it at this point. And, when things start ramping up, maybe July, August, September, then that's when I'll really, start figuring it out and, figure out what's next and kind of go from there.
Awesome. Well, he is CJ Stubbs. CJ, thank you very much. Did you make it to Erie, Pennsylvania yet?
I don't know. I've been talking to you, so I probably have passed it. I'm on cruise control right now.
And tell the fans, it's like another 20 hours for you, right?
Yeah, about 24 hours left.
And will you stop anywhere and sleep before you go the rest of the way?
Yeah, I'd probably not be safe if I didn't. But I'll probably drive about 15 hours, try and get to about Des Moines, Iowa, and then finish it off the next day. But we'll see. Maybe I'll stop an extra night, but we'll see.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? Safe travels. Thank you very much for always talking with me. And, I'll check in with you over the summer and see how you're doing. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good, Bob.
Awesome. He is CJ Stubbs, and we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was CJ Stubbs, and I want to thank CJ for doing that on the road as he was heading back home to Utah. Okay, Taylor, one of the last things that we haven't talked about is the success of the front office, and we have all the numbers when it comes to attendance. Let's get into that now.
So the attendance numbers and the growth of the fan base in Binghamton. So we're going to talk about the attendance and the sellouts in the 21-22 season. The total attendance was 90,187 for an average of 3,006 and 2 sellouts. The 22-23 season, the total attendance was 107,236 with the average of 3,830, also with 2 sellouts. The 23-24 total attendance was 110,775 with the average of 3,956, a total of 7 sellouts, 1 as well in the finals. The 24-25 total attendance was 1,200, or Jesus, I'm messing that one up. 1,024, oh my goodness. 124,000, if I can say numbers correctly, we will eventually get through this. 838, 29 home games. The average was 4,305. And we had 10 sellouts, 1 as well in the finals. In the 25-26 season, the total attendance was 124,565. The average was 4,449, and we had 13 sellouts and 3 as well in the playoffs.
Yeah, which is insane. Yes, there were 29 home games in the 24-25 season, which is why we had more in attendance in the 24-25 season versus the typical 28 home games. And let's be honest, the first 2 seasons, I think people were still having like the COVID fatigue, right? So the first year, only 3,000 fans showed up. But the year before that, They were in the there was no hockey the year before that because technically the Devils were playing down in New Jersey. But 2 years before that, when they were here in Binghamton, they only averaged like 3,400 fans for the Devils, right? So they only went down like 400. But I think a big part of that was because of COVID. The next year, the second year of the season, 3,830. I think that was a good increase. I think fans were like, "Oh, I'm ready to go watch hockey again," and so they went back, and the average and the attendance per game went up significantly. Here's the thing, Taylor. What people don't realize is this doesn't just happen. Usually, when teams get announced, they have their biggest and best years the first couple years, and then they start declining in attendance. People get bored of the team or whatnot and so forth. Yet this team, every single year since year one, the average attendance per game has gone increasingly up, and they went from 90,000 to 34,000 more fans in year 5 total. Isn't that insane?
It is. And, I remember you and I kept talking about it because, at the beginning of the season, it was, could it be better? Can it keep going? Can it keep growing? And it's one of those things where it's just like they're doing everything to prove us wrong type of thing, which is fine.
Yep.
But yeah, it's almost like we're watching it backwards where, as you say, like when you first bring something in, that the attendance is there. And that's like, I had said something to, I think one of the PD pages was like, I hope you guys continue that. Like you guys were so excited about the fan attendance you guys had in your first inaugural season. Like keep that up, like keep it going.
I think it's a great thing.
Keep excelling on that. And, I truly do hope that they are able to, keep that in production and, grow it even more as their years go on. But yeah, it's so funny to like watch it. And even the sellouts, like you were like, oh, well, it's going to be so hard for us to get sellouts as the season goes on because we don't have that many home games in February. And,
shows what I know.
Going into March and, here we are and we've had 13 and it's just, I almost think that schedule helped us a little bit. So it was like, we didn't have all those home games in the later part of the season. So everyone was like, well, we got to get to these games. We've got to go. And, everybody was looking for tickets all the time. And it was so interesting to kind of watch it kind of just fall into the way that it did.
Yeah, 100%. Now, of course, we had also 5 sellouts in the last 3 years in the playoffs, which is awesome, right? So in 23-24, we had 1 sellout in the finals. Of course, we only played 1 game in the finals at home. 24-25, same thing against the Thunderbirds, 1 sellout. First one was 5,011, which is more than what we have seats for, right? So they were doing standing room only. And then 1 sellout now they increased that 5,013. Now that was a league record at that point until this year, the PD Ice Cats. And again, I'm with Taylor 100%. PD, keep doing that. But the one thing that you have to be able to figure out, and this is the hard thing, but this is the thing that Binghamton has figured out, is how do you make those numbers consistently throughout the year? And that's the reason why Binghamton went from 90,000 in the first season to 124,000 in the 5th season, is because they figured out how to increase the attendance consistently throughout the season and increase, obviously, sellouts and the max capacity. If you think about it, the max capacity in Binghamton is 4,893. 4,449 is close to 90%. That means you're consistently bringing in 90% capacity every single week. That is the true sign of a healthy organization. So PD, it's great that you hit 78, 87 or whatever that number was in the playoffs. You did it a couple different times where you hit over 5,000. Do that consistently. That's the key here. And that's the key to any other team in this league is hit a mark like 90% capacity and then consistently do that, because that's very, very important. But why have the numbers increased so much each of the last 5 seasons? And Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong on any of these points. The team's success on the ice, winning 3 championships doesn't hurt, right? Which means that they've been playing pretty damn good in the last 5 years. Player to fan engagement after games at Tully's and on the road. Being able to watch games for free on YouTube, and the hard work of the front office staff and consistency of people working upstairs. In other words, every single year, they don't change out 2 or 3 or 4 people upstairs in the office. And who builds the relationships with your season ticket holders, with the people who are buying tickets or group tickets from certain corporations? It's the people upstairs. And I think these 4 things here are the reason why the Black Bears have done so good over the last 5 seasons. Is there anything here that I'm missing or that I got wrong?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, I hear it all season long about, people will ask questions about like, they'll ask the people next to them, like, oh, do you have season tickets? Like, how do you do it? Like, I think we're going to do it next year. Like, it's continuously growing, the people who want the season tickets, which if you get season tickets, then you're already halfway there. I mean, those people are showing up for games, and even if they don't show up for games, their seats are already sold. So the growth of season tickets alone, and, if you're a season ticket holder, you kind of get, the extra little stuff in the beginning. You get a bunch of coupons. Like, I think this year you got a bag with a ton of coupons for like things in the area to do.
Yeah.
The year before, we got these little bear pin things. I don't remember everything that was in these bags. You get ticket vouchers. So like you can, give, like we used to give them away. I don't think we gave any away this year. I think we kind of forgot about them, to be honest. But you get these ticket vouchers. So if you have a buddy who wants to come, you can just give them the ticket voucher. It's good for any games. It's not good for playoffs. But it says right on there, like it's good for any regular home game type of thing.
Right.
But yeah, I think you kind of hit the head on all of it, especially the player to fan engagement. And I think that's something that really needs to be like drilled in here is, there's always constantly talk about, oh, well, Binghamton needs to go to a higher league, or Binghamton needs a bigger league, or this or that or whatever. You go to other leagues, like if they brought the AHL back in here, you do not get the player to fan interaction that you do.
Right.
The way that we have it here.
Oh, it happens, but it's very, very limited.
It's definitely not to the extent that they have it here. They're pretty lenient about the fan engagement here in Binghamton, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. The players engage with the fans a ton.
Yeah.
And I mean a ton. You would not have that if we were in a higher league. They would be very well protected. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be able to go down to the player corners the way that you do, or, go in the other corner where the players come out for their family. Like none of that would be happening. And so I think that's something that really needs to be kind of instilled. And, for some of the people that are like, oh, well, they're good enough to play in higher leagues. And a lot of these players are. They could probably go to another league and play and be, a decent player in higher leagues. But Binghamton itself is so lucky with what we have now and the way that it is going that I wouldn't want it to change.
100%. Okay. I tasked you with a little bit of a task yesterday, gave you some homework. Actually, my wife was like, you gave her homework? It's not even the regular season. We're not even in a season. You gave her homework. But yes, I wanted your perspective on this instead of my perspective on this. But Taylor, I gave you the task of coming up with the 3 biggest stories of the Binghamton Black Bears season. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go from your least biggest story to your biggest story? We'll end with the biggest story. What is your number 3 biggest story of the Binghamton Black Bears season?
It's being the standard, and it was hard for me to come up with 3 because there's about a million things that I could have talked about.
Right.
And I need to preface this because my 1 and 2 are kind of similar.
Okay.
But I separated them. So I'm going to start with my 3rd one, which was being the standard. And, it's something that I've talked about all season. I've seen Tyson talk about it. I've seen you talk about it. I've seen the team talk about it. I've seen the other teams in the league talk about it. And, it's like the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we're known throughout the league as literally anything and everything you could think of, from the best team to the worst team, the softest, the roughest, the dirtiest, whatever name you could think of, somebody in the league has probably called Binghamton that.
Right.
But on the other end of that, they have become the standard in this league, and you can't convince me otherwise. When you have a team that finally beats us in the regular season after over a year of losses against us, and they celebrated like they just won the cup.
Yeah.
And then you hear in interviews with other teams talking about their one goal is to put something together to beat Binghamton. I'm like, we have treated every game as if they mattered. And, if we could see them in the playoffs, we treated them like a playoff game, where other teams are facing their opponents trying to figure out what they could do to beat us. It's not about beating the other team. It's about what can they do to beat Binghamton.
Yeah.
And, Tyson really talked about it in, the interview that he did about, all these teams. Like, that is their main goal. And I think that's kind of like one of the big key takeaways that I've had from this season.
So being the standard, being the gold standard in this league, is very interesting to me, because I've said multiple times, you just have to play better. You have to get better. And to fans that are angry that Binghamton won a third time, take that anger. Don't point it at Binghamton. Don't point it at the Binghamton fans who are spoiled. We know we're spoiled. We're a bunch of spoiled little babies that, trust me, when we fall, it's going to get really ugly online. It really is. We all know that. We all know it's coming, right? Where everybody's going to freak out. There's going to be mental breakdowns by a lot of Binghamton fans because we're spoiled. We know that. But take your anger and point it towards the people that are running your teams. They need to get better, because Binghamton is going to be this level for a very long time. They're going to produce. They're going to bring in. If Brant Sherwood leaves tomorrow, they've got John Quinville that can step right in. And John Quinville has already seen what it takes to win a championship. So that standard ain't changing. You guys need to get up to that level. And that's something that has been talked about all season long. Very interesting. What's your number two?
My number two, and I wasn't going to do this as my number two, but Jeremy convinced me otherwise.
Okay.
And it is Connor McAnanama leaving.
Okay. This is a very interesting part of the story, because it's important here, because Connor McAnanama staying could have meant Dom not having the same season if the two of them were battling each other. But give me your thoughts on why this is a really big story here.
Well, it was a big story right from the get-go. I mean, you heard the rumors going around, and then, we're pretty close with the McAnanamas, and we were being told kind of before it happened.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, like, this is either going to go really well or it's going to go really badly among the fan base. Not the team. I wasn't worried about the team.
Sure.
I was worried because, the fans fall, like, we watched it with Eggy, we watched it with Clark, we watched it with Mott and Olivieri when they, they didn't come back type of thing. And so these fans get so, like, emotionally invested with these players, and, everybody wanted the best for Connor. They wanted to see it. Like, they were so happy that he was finally going up and he was doing this on his own to try to get to the ECHL, because that's what he wants to do. So you kind of have this, like, this sideline story of like almost like a sidekick, where you're watching his story unfold in a different kind of, like, it's almost like a different time. So you're paying attention to what he's doing, even though he's not on the team still.
Right.
And, that really allowed Dom to kind of come in and be that goalie for us, where, when Connor left, everyone's like, oh, well, there goes our season. We're going to be in trouble now. We're going to have these issues. Like, we don't have Connor, who got us through the last two playoffs, which is something that you brought up a lot when it came to this playoff run.
Yes.
And, so I think Connor leaving was really good overall for everybody involved, for the team itself, because, Connor was, kind of the guy that was like, you either block the puck or you move so I can see it.
Right.
And I think the team learned a little bit, I think they learned how to play a little bit more defensively in front of the netminder, and to kind of protect their netminder a little bit more, or to, just step out of the way so they can do their job.
Yeah.
And I think Connor really helped, the whole goaltending situation in Binghamton, even when he wasn't playing. You constantly, if Connor's the backup, or, he's just sitting on the bench, and you see, like Dominic and him always had conversations back and forth. They were always talking to one another.
Yeah.
And, you kind of saw that bond happening, where they were just, they're very similar styled plays in the way that they do their game. And you just see it, you've seen him, like, work it over many times. So him leaving, I think, was great for him. And I think it was good for Binghamton. And then it truly allowed Dom to do what he needed to do to be that number one goalie for our team and to go out and have the run that he had. So when it came to the playoffs, you had that difficult conversation where you're like, what do you do? Because you've got this guy who has gotten us through the season, has had a phenomenal season in his first year. But then you also have Connor, who has come back now, who got us through those first 2 seasons with a phenomenal record in those playoff runs.
Yes.
And, you had that difficult conversation. So overall, that was a story that stuck up to me. And I originally wasn't going to talk about it because I know it's still kind of like a touchy thing for some people to kind of talk about.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't going to do it. And then Jeremy's like, you have to, it's one of those things where you have to do it. And it does kind of piggyback to my main point.
And what is your other biggest story of the year?
Player movement. And I know that sounds weird because we don't really have player movement within the league, but I'm specifically talking about the player movement on the team itself.
Okay.
And, it really it started with, Tyson, he played 2 games and then he's out on the IR, but he's on the bench.
Yeah.
And he was out for an extended period of time. And then even after that, he came back and had to go to the SP for the visa issues, which was a whole nother thing. We had so many different guys on, a certain, every other weekend you're expecting a different guy to go up and then you're playing without that guy for, a couple days or a couple games.
Zach Sirota, Dan Stone, there were definitely Jesse Anderson had to go and, get his visa taken care of. There were guys that continued to just keep going and then coming back.
Yeah, so you constantly had this this rotating, lineup that you're looking at where you're like, well, we're without Jesse this week, so who's going to fill his spot? And you're without Tyson for, a couple months, so who's taking his spot? And then, we had the big talk of Kyle Steffen coming back and, bringing him back into the lineup. And he really, his game this season really struck out to me because we watched a guy who, plays differently than I think a lot of other people do.
Yes.
And we really watched him. And I think this is, in my own opinion, I have nothing against Austin Thompson. I really enjoyed him. But in my personal opinion, when you had guys, you had Tyson Kirkby, Austin Thompson, and Don Olivieri as your first line. And that's what it was. It was such a solid first line. And then you come into this season and you no longer have that first line like that. And you have, Bondarenko and Stubbs and Jansen. And then your second line could be any other 3 guys, it was Yates and Swain and Sirota, or it could have been, Steffen and Shankar and Emery. It could have been any number of people at any point throughout the season of who was in the lineup type of thing. Mm-hmm. And we really watched Steffen go from he was a second line to a third line to he was an extra forward. And it didn't matter where he was in the lineup. He knew he had a certain role to play and he executed it.
He did.
And he went from being a guy that was just really good with just puck movement and, kind of being like Gavin Yates and that kind of thing to being so physical and gritty and aggressive. And it's something that you had kind of talked about at one point with him about just watching him almost break into this completely new person. And, we watched at one point, we saw Dan Weber go and be a forward for a night because that's what the team needed of him.
Yeah.
And that's what he went and did. So for me, it was a lot about the player movement because, if you look a couple seasons ago, if you had taken the roster and jumbled it all around and put, different guys with different people, it wasn't as fluid as this season was. It didn't matter who was playing with who. The fluidity of the team this season was so crazy to me. And especially with the amount of the IRs, the call-ups, the visa issues, just the, if there was an extra guy and, you had the college kids and you can shuffle them in and let a guy sit for if he needed to or whatever was happening. There was so much player movement in the roster, but every movement was so fluid. And I think that to me was the biggest aspect of this team this season compared to other seasons.
Yeah. And in the end, they still won a championship. So Thompson out opened up the door for Emery and Shankar to stay with the team or one of those 2 guys to stay with the team. And yet they still made it through the whole season. and they won a championship. So many moving parts, more moving parts probably this year than in previous years, even though they weren't doing stuff within the league. They made a couple trades. They brought in Skinner. Didn't work out. Didn't matter. He left, went to Port Huron, and they still won. All these things kind of like bumped into the Black Bears, but bounced off, right? Those movements, those crazy things, because then they eventually went and won the championship. Excellent points there, Taylor. Very good job. And you get an A+ on that.
Well, I've been thinking about it. You sent it to me, I don't know, like 2 days ago. I don't remember when you sent it to me.
Yeah.
And it's been on my mind. And Jeremy's constantly been like, have you figured out what you're going to do yet or what you're going to talk about? And I was like, no.
Wow.
And he brought up several points to me, and I don't even remember what the other two were. He's like, one of them was, us playing against Port Huron, their game better than we played their game better than they could.
Yeah.
And I was like,
That's
no, I don't want
point.
to keep talking about Port Huron, because apparently we live rent free and, all that. So I was like, I didn't want to bring up Port Huron again, because that's only a small fraction of what this season's kind of done for me.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I literally I had typed up like my ideas in my head, and I like had a note and my little points that I wanted to bring up, and Thompson was one of them. Mm-hmm. And then you had sent me the Brant Sherwood interview, and I hadn't had a chance to listen to it until earlier today when I actually got to listen to the full thing. And you guys talk about the whole Thompson thing. And I was like, it's kind of funny, like, to think that we were kind of on the same wavelength with certain stuff. And, and again, nothing against Thompson. I don't think anybody has anything against Thompson and what happened. I think it was unfortunate things where what was expected of him this year compared to last year, I think was just different. And I don't think he was ready to execute that.
Yeah.
Where, players like Romakers and Kyle Steffen, they're going to play no matter what because they want to play. They will do whatever it takes to play.
Yeah, and he specifically said Gavin Yates. Gavin didn't care where he was in the lineup. He was just ready to play. Taylor, great job. Fans coming up, we're going to take a couple weeks off of recording anything to truly give Taylor a break, to give myself a little bit of a break as well. But we will be back in a couple weeks. We'll have an interview or two planned, and we'll talk to some more of the guys throughout this summer and bring some other special guests, maybe former players from the Black Bears on as well, who are playing in other teams. Chris Mott already said he'd come back on and talk to us here on the Power Play Post Show. Maybe we'll check in with Fitzy or, Josh Fletcher, maybe get Josh back on the show. But this one has gone a pretty long time, but we had a lot to cover here, and we had two great interviews with Brant Sherwood and, of course, CJ Stubbs. So definitely make sure that you stay tuned. We'll put stuff out throughout the next couple of weeks, so we won't leave you high and dry. I don't think there's going to be a lot of news coming out about the Binghamton Black Bears over the next couple of weeks as well. Guys are going to be heading home. They this upcoming Monday, some of the guys that are still in town or in the area are going to be going to a New York Yankees game on Monday night. One of the last things that they'll do as a team this year before everyone starts to head home. The front office, they'll be working hard to sell season tickets, sell new sponsorship deals for the team to obviously keep that kind of stuff rolling. But they'll all take a vacation or two throughout the summertime as well. So you'll hear from us. Don't worry. And I know it's been a week since the last home game. We'll all be back in the arena again in about 4.5 months. So stay tuned for that. Now, the Power Play Post Show is available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on your favorite app, and don't forget to subscribe. Join the conversation on Facebook. Check us out there. Search for Power Play Post Show and become part of our community. Looking for everything Binghamton Hockey? Visit binghamtonhockey.net, your go-to source for stats, history, and all things Binghamton Hockey. Thank you to Rob Lapolis, our MC, John Petitucci, our musical director, and from the Binghamton Black Bears, CJ Stubbs and Brant Sherwood. I am Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And we'll talk to you guys next time right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.